episode 1 of the Ask the Dating Coach podcast. I'm your host, Adam Lyons. I've been a dating coach for 18 years, which makes me very, very old. That's right. That's what I'm feeling right now. And experienced. I like that. I appreciate that. I'm joined by my wife, Eve, who has helped me run this company for 10 years?
Over 10 years now.
Over 10 years. That is an incredibly long time. And we have some incredible guests for all of you today. For those of you guys that are tuning in at home, thank you so much. Bear with us. Probably gonna have 1,000 technical issues. It will get better. It's the first episode. It will probably be better than Joe Rogan's first episode of his podcast. Go check that out if you want to see a comparison. I think we can do better than that. But why don't we start by introducing our incredible guests, starting over here. Let's hand the microphone over to my good buddy, Michael Sartain.
Hey, good. How you doing, guys? My name is Michael Sartain. I'm a former U.S. military officer. I flew special ops for 5 years. I was counter intel for 2 years, and then I got out and I started throwing like the biggest events in Las Vegas and Los Angeles. I throw all the big charity events in Los Angeles, and I throw the 2 biggest bikini competitions in the world in Las Vegas. And I also have Men of Action mentoring, where I teach guys how to do everything that I just described.
Beautiful. My name is Fabiola Einhorn. I'm an intimacy and creativity coach. I have a background in UX design, biohacking, and ancient yoga. So very much focused on the intersection between ancient yogic arts and creativity, and super excited to be here.
Thanks. Yeah. Great to have you.
Well, we already established. My name is Eve Lyons. I helped build Adam's program called ACE Formula, where we help build guys their ideal dream life with their ideal partners.
But you can keep that.
Okay.
Well, I don't have a bio planned. I'm not prepared. But I'm Alley Cat. I'm a DJ, and I live in Las Vegas.
Hi, I'm Arden Lee, and I am the creator and facilitator of the Repatterning Project, which is an 8-week course in installing and reinstalling our patterns, habits, beliefs, and mindsets. I am also a chaos magician, and I am the student and soul lineage heir of chaos magician Grant Morrison. And I am also the front woman and sole proprietor of my solo music project, Arden and the Wolves.
My name is Lloyd Dixon. I am the founder and CEO and partnered with Adam Lyons on The Single Guy LLC. We help thousands of men around the world level up their dating life so they can date the woman they want and have the lifestyle that they want as well too. Also, big fan of jiu-jitsu, train a lot. So if you're a jiu-jitsu fan, love to meet up.
I love that you just called out like the whole world. By the way, if you like jiu-jitsu, I want to fight you. Like, that's a pretty good way to go. So I want to start by giving you guys an intention about the podcast. And let you know a little bit about it. Over the last 18 years, I have seen the dawn of the dating coach age, which was the pickup artist industry. I am incredibly close friends with some of the original guys, from Neil Strauss, who's a close buddy of mine, to Owen Cook, Tyler Durden from Real Social Dynamics. These are very close friends of mine. And of course, Michael Sartain, who's an incredible dating coach, Lloyd now. And we've got this new generation, these newer guys that are coming out. And I'll be honest with you, I don't agree with about 70% of what these guys say. And I'm tired of being quiet. I'm tired of not making a big deal of it. Over the last 10 years, I've made my money in mergers and acquisitions. I've essentially moved away from dating. I never shut down my company, but I moved into what I call real business. But it doesn't change the fact that behind the scenes, I was a little bit annoyed that somehow the message has got lost about what it really means to be good at dating. We have swung the pendulum far too across in the wrong direction as far as I'm concerned. So this is my attempt to get some noise out there with people I respect, people that are actually good at what they do, and get some real opinion going on what is actually making a difference from people that are actually doing it, not people that are talking about it, people that are actually doing it. I'm going to remind everyone, if you want to know who's good at dating, genuinely, guy or girl, just look at them and ask yourself, would you want their relationship? That's it. That's the only question you're going to ask. You listen to somebody and they're making a lot of noise, just look at their relationship. Would you want that? If the answer is no, or you're not sure, you probably shouldn't listen to a word they say. That goes for me. If you look at my relationship, you're like, I do not want to be that guy. I do not want to have his life. You shouldn't listen to me. So that should be the metric as far as I'm concerned. That was always the metric for dating coaches back in the day. That's how it should be. We are honored because obviously we have successful businesses. We're launching our podcast with a sponsor. And so I'm going to pull an Oprah moment. Please look under your seats, everyone. Please look under your seats.
Oh my God.
Yep, that's right. I know. There's a gift. This is one of the coolest things ever. I'd like you guys to open it, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, how am I going to open this? I wasn't prepared. Well, it just so happens that I have one of the devices. This is a tactical pen. Now, as somebody who has traveled the world teaching dating, also running businesses in some very interesting locations, I can assure you that going to Colombia has definitely led me into some unique scenarios. Having a tactical pen in my pocket is one of the things that makes me feel incredibly safe and secure. Before anybody online says, what would he do with it? I was a professional fencing champion for many, many years. I know exactly what to do with a sharp implement. But the point is, you can take it on a plane. You can go through security. We've been given a special gift for everybody that is watching. You can go to theatomicbear.com/dating. You get a discount that's
20%
from us,
off.
20% off. But I'd like you guys to check it out. And of course, Michael, I'd like your opinion on it because you're military. So you can tell us if it's any good. Please open them up there for all of you guys. You guys can keep them.
What part of it's tactical? Just that it's hard?
It's made out of titanium.
Oh,
it's
holy
got the
shit.
glass breaker, and it's an actual pen. You can.
There's two pens here.
Yeah, so you have a real pen and then a glass breaker at the other end, which you could use as a stabbing implement if necessary.
Wow.
But you can walk through security. I've walked through security countless times on planes.
There is no complaint about this.
Right, and it's
amazing.
a box opener. If you like, let's be real. Most of the time, guys carry a knife to open Amazon packages. It will open an Amazon package, which is, as far as I'm concerned, all you
That's
need.
how I use it too. I don't need it self-defense. I already have 2 guns on me.
2 guns.
But I do use it to open my Amazon packages.
Yeah.
Best use.
So yeah, we've got 2 different types. One of them is more dangerous than the other one. But these are gifts for you guys.
This thing is like a diamond cutter, man. This thing is strong.
Right? Yeah, it's great. It's the top-selling tactical pen on Amazon. It's a great company. I'm a huge fan of the Atomic Bear, so feel free, you guys. That's a gift for you from our sponsor. Please go there, check them out. theatomicbear.com/dating. It's very cool. So that's our sponsor. So here's something that I'd really like to get.
Wait. There's an Atomic Bear pin inside of the thing that I just opened with the Atomic Bear pin.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it now. It's Inception.
Yeah, you get it.
But in order to get the open package, you must have Atomic Bear first.
Someone is catching this to the carotid artery if they ever try to jump me. This thing is awesome.
And you can do you know what I mean? It was funny. I went to Zook nightclub actually the night we were hanging out.
Yeah.
And as I walked in, my buddy's like, "Yo, you better not carry one of your freaking knives with you. They won't let you in the door." And I was like, "Watch me." And I literally had the Atomic Bear pen on me. I walked straight through security. They waved their wand over me. They go, "What's that?" I'm like, "A pen, no problem."
They let you in with a pen?
Of course. Just a pen. And so I'm walking in the nightclub and I'm like, if anyone messes with me,
Kylie, are you
I
watching
will
this?
write their name down.
You can stab someone in the nightclub now.
Yeah, I will write their name down or take it. And I actually used the pen in the club, which was crazy because I didn't think I would, but I used it to sign my check. So I actually used it.
Right?
Yeah, like a boss. Bought the bottle. So yeah, there we go. Anyway, I think they're really, really cool. So you guys enjoy them. Check out the Atomic Bear. Now, here's the question, and I'd love to hear this from any one of you that's brave enough to go first. What do you think about the current state of the content, the quality that is being shared online by most so-called experts on dating? Michael, let's start with you because I know you're like in that world.
Okay, so the funny thing is, if you guys go back and watch the interview that I did with Adam, we started talking about Andrew Tate and some of the things that he was saying. And at the time, you didn't know who Andrew Tate was.
Right, yeah, I had no idea.
It was pretty soon. Now, this is before August, so he's the most Googled person in the world in August. So that should tell you something, right? I had Richard Reeves on my podcast. Richard Reeves is a senior fellow. He's the at the Brookings Institute. He was the deputy. He was an assistant to the deputy of the Prime Minister for the UK, and he basically started having academic discussions about how men are falling behind in dating and in economics and different stuff like that. And one of the things he said was, because no one is willing to have this conversation, that's why Andrew Tate became the most popular person in the world. That's not an exaggeration. He was Googled more than anyone else in the world. He had 12 billion searches of his name or uses of his hashtag on TikTok in August of last year, which is by far more than anybody. So he had blown everyone out of the water. He was the most famous person in the world, the quickest. So the first question you gotta ask is like, what was going on with men to make them feel this disenfranchised? To me, I mean, there's a lot of answers. I think, some of the answers you could say was just a modern description by mainstream media that men should not be masculine. I think that was part of it. But I think another issue that probably happened, had to do with the fact that like some of these topics were just taboo to have any discussion about whatsoever. And so if serious academics aren't having these conversations, then what's going to happen? I love Joe Rogan, but what's going to happen is a guy's going to go on Joe Rogan, he's going to say something, it's going to go viral, and then that's what the mainstream thing is going to be, instead of having PhDs and academics have this conversation. What happened, I think, after that was I don't think, like, we'll call it the red pill community, I don't think it turned people misogynistic. What happened was there were misogynistic people and they were looking for a place to go, and this was a very easy place to go. Early pickup days, like back in 03 when I was doing this, there was none of this, like, these women, like, we're gonna do this to meet women, and then also, fuck, I hate women. Like, none of that shit was going on. It was just, we're doing this to bridge this gap so that I can meet more women. That was it. And then later on, there was, I'll tell you another thing, there was no political conservative aspect when I was hanging out with Mystery in 2011.
Nope.
At no point did we ever talk about who the president of the United States was. At no point did we ever talk about LGBT concepts. None of that shit when those early days of pickup. Then what happened, the last thing I think that happened was political conservatism sort of crept in and sort of co-opted the manosphere, and so some of them are political conservative and some of them are like hyper puritanical Christians and stuff like that, and so I think that's the state where we are now.
One of the things I love about dating back then, which I think it's worth you guys all knowing, is a lot of the women that I was friends with would always say the same thing. No matter what you say about a guy who has studied dating, they're nice guys. They would all say that they're nice guys. Like, not like nice guys like a derogatory term, like they're great to hang out with. They're fun, it's a good date, it's a good time, they have good communication, they listen. Like, it's the kind of guy you want to hang out with. And whether you date them or not, whether you like the fact that they're, trying to meet somebody special, they would always say that. And that's not what I hear nowadays. I don't hear that from guys that are learning nowadays. Women are like, this guy's an asshole, this guy's a fuckboy, not this guy's actually somebody that I would like to talk to. And I think it is worth noting, in 2008, we were actively teaching consent inside the dating community. Long before it was spoken about in the media. And it was the men in the dating community that were very big on consent. And I'll tell you why. It's totally selfish. But the reason was very simple. Men identified in dating that when you took a woman to bed and she wasn't 100% into you, or she wasn't sure, the next day she would ghost you, she wouldn't call you back, and it upset the guys. They were like, They would literally say, what have I done wrong? And so it was around 2008 this conversation started. You want her to be the initiator. And the whole focus was on making sure that she was comfortable, she was leading the way, and at all points was saying, yes, I want this, yes, I want it. And we'd say, you've done a good job when she says, yes, 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 yes. That's the sign of a good intimate relationship. Not when she's like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure, I might have to go. That's not good. You've not done a good job. And so somehow, and I think it's exactly what Michael said, this political agenda has crept in, and there's this new wave of guys that are pushing against something that we already worked out once before. And I know that you were around then, like you were back then. I know. What do you have to say about it?
Well, I just like to point out, first of all, that Google metrics may measure popularity, but they don't measure expertise. So I've Googled Andrew Tate, for example, several times because I want to watch what the trash fire is happening. And I could say that I have, wow, I'm the most popular person on my block because I've got 100 people showing up in my yard. But if the reason that 100 people are showing up in my yard is because my house is on fire, then that's probably not really good for me. So I think it's important to discern popularity from someone who actually has the expertise and is regulated enough in their own nervous system and achieving the results in their own life to be able to be qualified to actually teach people. And when you look at someone like Andrew Tate, if you ask, well, why is he an expert on women, right? Does he have a lot of women, did he used to be a woman? Does he have a lot of women in his life? Does he, what gives him, do women like him? If you go up to your average woman on the street and you ask them, what do you think of Andrew Tate? Would you date him? I think that's an excellent, I'd love to hear actually the answer from the other three women who are here. Like, would you date Andrew Tate? Because I know I would not.
Well, honestly, I don't mind. Like, again, I'm not gonna argue with you or like fight with you, but like, I grew up in obviously Eastern Europe too. Like, I mostly agree with his message, right? And if I don't have to watch him, right? But in general, like, again, his dating content might be a bit more polarizing, I would say, right? Like, again, not everyone will agree, but in general, he teaches you to be a better, like, in my opinion, right? Because again, that's even on my feed, basically, right? He teaches really good core values. Like he literally teaches a really good even bro code as well too. He's like, hey, I would never touch any other guy's woman, and if I ever did, like like if any of my guys touch my woman like that, it's on me because who am I to attract this kind of quality of friends anyway, basically, right? So I, in general, don't mind his content. I don't agree with 100% of it, but majority of it, it's because again, it's mostly self-centered and mostly he says like, hey, you're the problem, right? If you have this issue, you're the problem. And he has that core values. He actually have a really, I believe, a good approach of working on yourself to become the person that you want, right?
But do you think it's aspirational to land in jail for sex trafficking?
Well, again, that's
haven't charged him with
exactly
anything.
right. Like that's questionable.
He's been
right?
in jail for 6 months and no one's charged him with anything. Like even Pierce Morgan came out yesterday and said this is ridiculous. I know Andrew. There's like no. He's seen the dossier. There's no evidence against him. It's one of these situations with the sex trafficking thing where it was. Again, this could all be conjecture, but this is what I've seen is that what happened was all of these different platforms canceled him on the same day, like within a few hours of each other, which would imply collusion between them, right? One of the things that he did is he created an affiliate program that caused him to have multiple different accounts share his content, and they were receiving 50% of selling his low ticket offer, which was called Hustle University. In doing so, he grew faster than any social media person in history. The problem was not what he was saying. The Ayatollah of Iran cuts homosexuals' heads off and still has a Twitter. It's not about misogynistic speak. If anyone is stupid enough to think that Andrew Tate was taken down because the things he said were misogynistic, you're naive. He was taken down because he got too popular too fast. I literally talked to an executive at Instagram last week. He agreed with me totally. The problem is, if you say this and no one knows who you are, they don't care. The platform got too big. He was speaking way too much against big tech, and he was saying some things. Now, as far as his expertise, it doesn't make any difference. I'm just saying that what happened was he got too powerful too fast on TikTok specifically, on YouTube, and on Instagram way too quickly. At no point, and I asked the guy the same thing, the guy from Instagram, at any point did Andrew Tate break terms of service on Instagram? He said emphatically no. He never posted any of his YouTube comment on Instagram, which means Instagram took him off their platform for something he did on another platform. Let me say this one more time. Some of the people in Saudi Arabia, they beheaded 81 homosexual men last year, and they have not had their fucking Twitter account taken down. This is not about his views. This is about him becoming incredibly popular in a short amount of time. So the whole narrative about this whole thing, like, I haven't seen any evidence to show that the human trafficking thing is real, but the other problem that I'm having is that, like, if you don't like his narrative, that doesn't mean he should be convicted of a felony. He should be convicted of a felony if he actually committed a felony. And if you don't agree with his statements, like for instance, he quotes the Old Testament, a man and a woman are of one flesh, so a woman belongs to a man. Some people find that offensive. If you find that offensive, that's fine. That doesn't mean he raped a woman. And I think that's where the issue comes, because I have several friends of mine who come to me and they're like, I can't believe you know him, blah, blah, blah. I was like, dude, I would interview Benito Mussolini on my podcast if he was still alive. I really don't give a shit. But the situation is, one of the problems is we've gotten to the point where what we believe and what makes us feel a certain way is now causing us to believe this person is guilty and this person is innocent. His criminality has absolutely nothing to do with his viewpoints. That's the only thing that I'm saying.
Oh, I agree with that. I was under the impression that it was the women who were coerced into staying at his compound and who were lured in with a promise of relationship.
One more time. So there's videos of those two American women leaving the compound, picking up a pizza, going back in the compound, and then leaving in an Uber. There's Uber records. Those two women specifically have turned evidence against him. They decided to testify on Andrew Tate's behalf. The judge has now thrown their testimony out. So they were initially for the state. There is no Fourth Amendment in Romania, so they can hold him for 6 months without charging him. We're coming up on 6 months on the 29th of June. That's the end of the 6-month period, at which point they have to charge him or they have to let him go, in which case he's going to move to the Emirates, and now Romania does not get his $50 million and all his Bugattis anymore, which is the real reason why they arrested him.
So I'd love to hear from the other women as well. Like, what do you guys think, like, on Andrew Tate specifically? Like, where do you stand? Let's get some
I would not date him. End of story.
No comment, honestly. I can't say, though, I'm seeing some like general patterns that I want to comment on that I feel are really important, right? So part of why I'm into, like, a big part of my work is women's empowerment is, like, there's this incentive, right, of, like, yes, as you said, like, men are so scared to take the first move, right? And so just allowing women to reflect on their boundaries on a daily, right? That's the thing that I think we're missing, right? Every everyone should do this, right? But if we're only reflecting on our boundaries at those very intimate moments and we don't get to practice them otherwise, then of course it's going to be really hard. That's one thing. The second thing that I'm seeing is that, potentially, like, my theory is that women also, like, biologically and neuroscientifically, we probably have a lot more sensory inputs than men. And so when we are in intimate situations, I think, and I'm seeing over and over again, that it's much more likely that we're in like some sort of altered states of consciousness, in which case our consent falls away. And so I think, honestly, like, it's just about us getting to know our differences a little bit more and working with them. And of course, there's the economic incentive now where, like, yeah, of course, let's make money on this because women have also economically been suppressed for so long.
I'm curious, do you think the altered states of consciousness would mean like altered states of consent? Like, what I mean is, sometimes we would say a girl's like in state or whatever. Would you say, or buying temperature is high, would you say she's in one state at one time and she meant yes, and later in another state she meant no? Could it be something like that? Is that what you're talking about? I mean, that's fascinating. I've never thought of it like that.
It's hard to, like, sit with what you truly want when you're not centered in yourself, right? And that's what most of us struggle with, right? We are not good at centering in ourselves because we don't really know how to handle our emotions or process them. And yes, any altered states of consciousness, whether that's drugs or breath work or high altitude, whatever it might be, or nervousness,
sure.
Endorphin rush, right? Like, whatever it might be. So.
What do you think, Lloyd? Because Lloyd's a younger generation dating coach, and you're sort of like more in touch with it.
About what she just said, or about the whole thing that we're talking about?
Fabiola and Andrew Tate. Let's
cool. So I'll just touch on what Fabiola just said. The altered state of consciousness is interesting because what I teach my clients is that, like, when it comes to consent and it comes to agreeing to do something, a lot of times guys will think like, oh, I got consent, now I'm good, now I can be an asshole. And I'm like, no, you gotta like actually like be a friend to them, be a good person overall, and you'll never get in trouble. What's interesting I've found is that the guys who do get in trouble for this sort of stuff are actually like really left-leaning, like progressive kind of guys. And then when people find out that they're not actually like that, they're actually bad people, then that's when it comes out, But if you say who you are and you're the guy the whole time, then people know and they can make a conscious decision right from the get-go.
Have you all heard the tea analogy from England? Do you guys all know this? So this is like one of my favorite. You gotta love the UK. Like, and I'm totally biased here. Every so often the UK nails it. I always have a mic. So I love this because in the dating industry, when this video first came out, we freaking shared this everywhere. We were like huge fans. It basically goes like this: understanding consent is like understanding a cup of tea. When someone comes into your house, it's okay to say, "Would you like a cup of tea?" And it's okay for them to say, "No, I would not like a cup of tea." At that point, it is not okay for you to say, "I think you should have the tea." And they say, "But I do not want the tea." And you go, "Just taste the tea." They go, "I do not want to taste the tea." And you go, "Taste the tea, I will add sugar to it." And they go, "No." And you go, "Okay, would you like a drink of water?" They go, "Yes." They go, "Ha, it's tea." You can't do that. That's not okay. You can't do that. The other analogy along that is if you say to somebody, "Would you like a cup of tea?" And they say, "Yes." And you go, "Excellent. Here's the tea." And they go, "You know what? I've changed my mind. I don't want it." I say, "Unfortunately, you have confirmed that you want the tea. You will now be drinking the tea." And it's like, "No, I really don't want the tea. No, I'm going to give it to you." Right? And so as long as you can understand tea and the way it works with consent on a cup of tea in the house in England, you can fully understand consent when it comes to women.
I think you guys will like this. So, most of the women I date are bisexual, and sometimes my female friends will come up to me and they'll be like, "Oh, this creepy couple just asked me to go home with them." And I was like, "No, they're allowed to ask you once.
Yeah.
All of them are allowed to ask you. That is not creepy to ask you once. Now, if they keep asking you, or if they try to slip Molly in your water, then it's a fucking problem."
Yeah, I was like,
they're all allowed to ask you once.
I agree, but also, I agree with the analogies are really good, way to understand, of course, too. And I want to add to what Fabiola said earlier as well, too, right? Like, so of course, men gotta work on consent better and make sure that, they don't overstep the boundaries. But so is women, right? Like, just because women are empowered to say no, it shouldn't act as a way to then throw it, in men's face. Be like, "Well, I said yes, but I didn't mean to." Like, "Well, I drink your tea, but I didn't want to drink your tea." Right? Like, I'd be like, "No, just fucking say no then." You know what I mean? Like, so for me, it's on women internally, right, to make sure that they're comfortable saying what they want to say actually too, and if not, then to make say, oh, I said yes, but I didn't mean to say yes. So now, I'm going to go after him. That's awesome.
I agree with that 100%. And I think actually, because I used to be a dating coach as well, I didn't include that in my introduction.
You wrote a book on the subject.
I did. I am also the author of The New Rules of Attraction. And the reason that I wrote that book was because so many of the dating books for women at the time were promoting this idea that in order for a woman to be desirable, she needs to be exclusive. Therefore, she needs to say no when she really means yes. She needs to say no at least 5 times before she can actually say yes. So what that does is it actually muddies the water of consent. And what I was attempting to do is to create my own methodology through the New Rules of Attraction, which is basically empowering women to go after what they want in a way that is non-needy, in a way that is not in any way going to come across as desperate, but which allows women to use their agency to pursue the relationships they want in a way that is elegant and is aligned with their own values. So I could not agree more that the way that we have socialized women, that it's, and this is also, this is part of patriarchy too, because basically what we're saying when we promote beliefs like that is that a woman is only valuable if she hasn't been with a lot of men. And in order for us to know that she hasn't been with a lot of men, she really needs to not say yes too easily, which is kind of funny because men want women to say yes to sex, correct? And yet they are disincentivizing them from doing so. So the more that we can promote women's enjoyment of sexuality, the more we are going to have those clear waters of consent so women can say yes when they mean yes.
I have a funny joke about this very fast, and I'm actually right now. There's a cool comedian, I forget his name, but I would love to grade him. He would say that as well to all the time, like, what does this mean, ladies? You saving yourself for the one, saving yourself a lot. No, you practice for the one, because when you meet that one guy that you really, really like, you better make sure that you give him really good sex, like something like that.
Yeah. So what's interesting, what I think is interesting, so the opposite would be if he meets a guy meets a girl, and she actually hasn't been with a lot of guys, but she immediately has sex with him. In his mind, he might think she's been with a lot of guys. And so what you're saying is she should say no frequently, and make him work for it to the point where she says yes, or I guess
that was the old methodology, but not what she taught the opposite.
Okay,
she says be clear about her communication.
Be clear about it. Okay.
Yeah, that was.
So here's the thing. I talk about this in my program because my program isn't a dating program. It's just overall male improvement. Often, especially you dealing with salespeople, they'll come up and they'll give you a no right off the gate, and you deal with the objection. And that's something moral to do on a sales call. Yep. Dealing with the objection is okay to do on a sales call. Dealing with the objection is okay to do when you're trying to figure out where to go to lunch. When I tell my guys is when, even though someone may say no and mean yes, it's not your fucking business. If someone says no, when you're in the bedroom, when they say no, you hear no. Even though you may know it's yes, it's none of your business. It's Schrodinger's cat. It may be yes and it may be no, but you're going to believe that it's no. Then what you do is you back off, and then you may try again later, or may try again on another date or something like that, and then she may say yes. But I always say this is a really deep point of contention, because I'll hear men say something to the effect of, well, she really, her body language told me that she wanted to have sex. That's fine, but you're putting yourself in horrible, horrible legal liability. And you may be completely correct with what you're saying, but the reality is, if she says no, then it's none of your business if she actually meant yes. And you're going to have to deal with that, because the opposite is you go to jail. And that's the other problem.
So I've got a fun...
We agree on that.
I've got a fun one that I don't think many men will have experienced, and because of that, it isn't really spoken about in the media. But I do think this is something worth touching on. There is a belief that when a man gets rejected, he has a very harsh negative reaction to that. What is not well known, because this rarely happens, is what happens when a man rejects a beautiful woman. And I have done this many times, and I am 100% telling you that I have received some of the most toxic, aggressive attacks that I have ever seen. There is one particular woman who I rejected, and she told me exactly what she thought of me. I think my favorite was, some dating coach you are, you can't even get me. And I was like, because I don't want you. And she's like, I'm going to tell everyone that you don't want me and you couldn't get me even though I offered it. And I was like, this is a very strange, but yeah, I'm okay with that. And she goes, So she blocked me, and I was like, okay, well that's great. I will block her too, because clearly she's crazy. And then I get a message on another platform where she says, I can't believe you blocked me. And I was like, but you blocked me first. She goes, yes. Then I realized that was a mistake, and I unblocked you, only to find out that you were so rude and you blocked me, and you don't even want to be friends. And I'm like, what is going on? But I think it is worth people understanding that there is a difference between men and women. And we'll just tackle, those particular genders right now. I'm not going to say that other genders don't exist or do exist, because I just don't want to get into that. But we'll talk between men and women. There is a definitive difference.
Yeah.
And for me, one of the biggest is 60% of men on dating apps have 0 matches. You can look it up. You can find the statistics. That's a thing. That means 100% of women do not experience anything more than 40% of men. As a dating coach for 18 years, the other 60% of men that women aren't interacting with have no idea how to take a picture. They're not actually unattractive, they just don't know how to take a picture. Not only do they not know how to take a picture, they don't know how to write a bio. And a lot of women will be like, well, if they don't know how to write a bio, they can't be attractive. But the reality is, they don't want to brag. They don't want to talk about how good they are. They kind of want the woman to work it out themselves on the date. So they go, I will upload a bio with this one picture that my mum said was good. And my bio I'll leave very sparse. And I'll just wait for someone to come along. And they'll go swipe, 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 swipe. Nope, no matches. Meanwhile, this other guy comes along who's really good at Tinder. And he's got the professional picture, he's hired somebody to do it, he's paid somebody to write his bio, everything's on track, and the woman's like, that's the guy for me, the advert looks great. She meets the guy, he's professional when it comes to Tinder or whatever dating app he's using, Bumble, and she goes on a date with him, he takes her to bed, and then he moves on to the next one, because he's spent money and time crafting the perfect bait to be able to turn Tinder into that magnet. And women are not interacting with these other guys.
It's actually worse than that. So it's the top 10% of men on Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge are getting 63% of the right swipes. The top 20% of men are getting 83% of the right swipes. And if you want to take the other correlation, it's the top 43% of women that are getting 63% of the right swipes. It is 60% of women that are finding matches on Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge, but they're finding matches with 4.5% of the men, meaning it is the same 4.5% of men. So if you look at the matches, you'll see 60% of women finding matches, and this isn't right swipes. This means they're actually going on a date. It's 60% of the women are matching with these same, or going on dates with 4.5% of the men. If dating were a nation, it would be Venezuela. It would be the most unequitable nation on earth, and that's essentially what's happening. And if you want to go back to the original point, this is why Andrew Tate exists, because now we have 95% of men, some of which are getting right swipes, and very few are getting dates. For the reasons you said before, because it's a picture of them in a fucking flannel that's out of focus, where they're holding a fish, or at a college football game with 6 of their guy friends, and they think women somehow find this attractive, that they're sitting in front of their Toyota Corolla with their arms folded like this. They think that this is somehow attractive. There are specific ways to improve Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge profiles, and men are too prideful to ask for help on how to do that, and so they end up doing things that they think would be cool.
I agree, yeah.
100% agree. And I think when we're talking about dating apps is kind of a microcosm of, I think, a little bit of a bigger problem with our society when it comes to dating. So when we were in tribal societies, one of the ways that women would find men attractive was they would see them do a variety of different things. They'd interact with people in the tribe, they would see if their sayings hold weight, they would see how good of a hunter they are, they would see how good they were at building shelters, those kinds of things. You don't get any of that information a lot of times in modern dating. Even if you go on the date, you're looking across from the other person and you're talking for 20 minutes over coffee. Like, how do you get that much information from them?
I've got to jump in here, because if you listen, I love this analogy, because if you listen to what the average guy is doing on a dating app, he's showing a picture of him hunting with a fish. He's standing in front of the car that he built himself. I mean, he's showing the male traits. He's like, I can hunt, I can fix my car, and this house behind me, I built the extension.
But that's not what the women are.
But the women aren't like, yep, hunter, builder, this is the guy, that's the one, right? Meanwhile, you got this other guy who inherited some cash from his parents, bought this really nice car that he's on payments because he's a $30,000 millionaire, but he's got, like, the chisel jaw because he's in the gym every day because he doesn't have real muscles. And then the women are like, that guy is so pretty, because he's, because it looks appealing. I love that because it's such a good analogy.
It is. And the stats kind of of show this. If you ask the average woman, like you show a picture of an average guy, they'll say 80% of those men are unattractive, no matter who they're looking at, okay? So if most women are saying that most men are unattractive, there must be a disconnect here because people are pairing up. So in actuality, if you show more information about that guy, if that guy, you see him doing something that he's good at, if you talk to him for a little bit, maybe you know his friends, then the stats tend to go up. But you can't see any of that with dating apps, and you can't see any of that the more individualistic and the more separated we become in our society as social groups tend to decay.
Dude, I observe this. What do you think, Fabiola, about dating and dating apps? Because I know you've had some experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it's obviously like dating apps are catering to people with a specific skill set, and we need to keep that in mind, right? Like things like smell are so important, right? Like our pheromones, right? Of how we're attracted, to people. And I know especially, I mean, if I'm looking at patterns and like what women seek, it's right, a man who has like gravitas, who has like integrated himself, who knows how to deal with his emotions and how to like hold himself, his energy, right? So yeah, you can't get any of that online.
I have interesting insights, although I've been off the market ever before Tinder was actually even launched, so I don't have experience with Tinder. But do you have experience with like other more ancient online apps, being a single woman?
Ancient online apps.
Let's put it this way. Mine to go was back then was OkCupid. I don't think it exists anymore. I'm not sure. Thank God I'm married, goodness. But nonetheless, I remember putting my pictures, and I used to be a photographer in Hollywood, so I took really hot selfies, guys. Like I knew how to take them. You would see me, 12 years from now, hot photographer, whoo, he was smoking. But anyhow, I put one of those filtrations pictures, right, to see which ones people like the most. And the one that came out was actually the simplest selfie I took on a film camera with me on a bicycle on the beach with just braids and the big sunglasses and the hat. I couldn't even see like nothing, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't really revealing. You couldn't even see my breasts. It was just like my face basically. It meant like the simplest picture for some reason. I don't know. It was like a fun revelation.
So this is fascinating from a marketing perspective. Obviously, I spent a few years working in business and marketing at this point. I mean, many years. And there's a lot of analysis and split testing that goes on into what type of women do men find attractive for advertising. And believe it or not, there is more money and data that goes into that than there is into dating. But it gives a really good picture of what the average guy finds attractive. And it is, believe it or not, does anyone want to guess? You guys?
Girl next door, probably, right? You got it, because that's what I look like in my pictures.
Anyone want to guess?
Well, according to OkCupid, it's more of alternative looking women, but I'm curious what the actual stats say.
I don't know. So, mine was like literally not alternative. I had like really like smoking hot selfies, like really Christina Aguilera kind of style. This was like me like in the beach, like like very like silly selfie, like absolutely,
So it's conservatively dressed, big-breasted brunettes that look like girl next door.
Okay.
So yeah, that's it. So and it's not like completely covered up like with a bow tie and a suit, but sort of like they're in a nice t-shirt or sportswear, and you'll see a lot of companies they'll do that. They'll have like this brunette in sportswear. They usually have like an athletic body type. They definitely have larger personality types that you can tell, but that's like that's part of the thing. And I think what that tells, and this is again, the average dating guy, and I know this, they are going to brag about dating the ultra hot, look what I can do. But they're not actually helping people. What they're doing is bragging because they're almost blown away that they can do this because they couldn't believe it. And I know this because when I first started dating, I was going to be like, I'm going to prove to everyone how good I am. So I had a really simple thing. You can pay me an amount of money and I'll take you out into a nightclub and you can point to any woman you want in the club and I will go and make out with her. 100%. If I don't make out with her, you get a refund there and then. If I make out with her...
situation for you, huh?
Oh. London was crazy. I will make it. If I don't make out with her, you get a refund. If I do make out with her, that is a deposit on a 10-day training that is that much money per day, and I will teach you how to do this. And that's how I got my reputation, because in London, you knew Adam's success rate was right there. The guy could pick the woman, and I had a deal. I was like, don't pick somebody I'm not attracted to. That was my one deal. I was like, don't pick someone I wouldn't want to do, because that's just mean. You know what I mean? Like, haha, I made you do that. You know what I mean? Like, don't do that. Like, so we're going to agree they're attractive, right? And then it's good. And I had this. And I remember this one student turned up, and he goes, I will pay you 10 grand if you can legitimately do what you say you can. And I was like, I did this yesterday. I did this the day. I do this every day. This is not a question. This is going to happen. And he's like, whatever. Here's 10 grand in cash. Prove it. And I was like, all right. But just so you know, that's not the down payment. That's the whole program. We're going to do 10 days together. I'm going to help you get this. And he's like, yeah, whatever. So we go in a club, and he points to this girl at a private table, and he goes, her. You can't get her. I walk straight up to her, start chatting to her for a few minutes. Next thing you know, the two of us are making out. And it was really easy. I said, hey, that guy says give me 10 grand if I can make out with you. I'll split it with... No, not really. This
I was going to say that too,
But that does work. But anyway, not that I did that. And so I made out with this woman, and I came back to the guy, and he was nowhere to be seen. And I'm walking around the club trying to find this guy. I'm like, what happened? And he's outside. So I go out there. I'm like, dude, what happened? He goes, I'll never be able to do what you just did. I was like, yeah, you will. You paid for it already. We're going to do this. And he goes, no, keep the money. I'm done. It's not for me. I won't be able to do it. And that was the moment I realized that making 10 grand is... No, that was the moment I realized that the average guy does not want to see that which is impressive. The average guy is looking for the average woman. He wants somebody that he's comfortable with. He wants somebody that makes him feel homely. Somebody that he thinks he's going to be able to keep. That is not going to push him out of his comfort zone. He's not going to have to get that big expensive job or push for that promotion. Someone that is going to bring him a beer and sit next to him while he drinks that beer, probably drinking a beer herself, watching the game, talking about who's going to win, playing a video game together, and is going to help him out with his poker night, right? That's the average guy, what the average guy wants. And I learned a long time ago that in marketing, when it comes to dating, you're better off targeting the average guy because there's a lot more of them than going for the guy that is like, I want to be able to date, you know, Megan Fox, and if not, I want my money back, right? That's not the ideal target. And so the average guy is looking more for that. And the techniques that the average guy needs to learn are nowhere near as advanced as what you'd need if you wanted to date a porn star or an OnlyFans one or whatever is the thing that you really wanted. The average guy only needs to do a few basic things to really improve. So here's what I'd like to hear from each of you. What do you think, or what would you say are the basic things the average guy needs to do to actually, you know, turn themselves up and get to the level they need to attract the average woman they're looking for, that girl next door type?
Sure. I mean, like, the average thing that I would say, okay, so most people have a schedule that involves them staring at their computer a lot, and they don't really go out that much. And then they log on a dating app, and they're like, okay, now I'm going to try and find dates, and that's the way that they do it. But men, and everybody in particular, you're usually the most attractive when you're doing things that you like doing.
Yeah.
Right? You know, so like, I get an introverted guy who doesn't like going out and talking to people. Like, I'm not going to force him into a loud club, okay? Maybe he'd be better at like an anime convention if he's into anime. Maybe he'd be better at, you know, doing improv, or maybe he'd be better at just going to a seminar because he's a more intellectual type, okay? He's going to meet the right people there, and he's going to get the most attractive person for him because he is being the most attractive. He's doing stuff that he likes. So I would say the average guy should just go out, step out of your house, and do things that you like doing, and be a little bit strategic about it. You know, you want to find something that women are actually at. You know, if you're just going to what's the thing that literally only have guys? Maybe
Jiu-jitsu.
There are actually 3 women in my jiu-jitsu gym.
Wow. Would you do them though? Exactly.
Something like that. But yeah, so you want to be a little strategic about it, but if you just get out and you do those things, that alone, for the average guy, they will be able to find somebody. Now, on top of that, you want to work on your social skills, be able to meet people, be able to approach, because you got to talk to them at some point. But I would say those are the first 2 things that I would do if you're the average guy, is focus on those. Don't worry about getting anything crazy. Focus on doing things that you like doing, because you're going to be the most attractive there, and then you're going to meet people doing those things, and it's going to be a lot easier to do.
What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I think that when a man is really living his purpose is when he is the most attractive, when he's really aligned with himself in his life. And I would say that something that is really also important and is often overlooked is that dealing with our unresolved trauma, and obviously this is my wheelhouse because repatterning is my thing, but it's beyond just being able to attract someone. It's also about being fully integrated and fully in your integrity as a man, or as a human being even, because when the rubber hits the road, the closer we get to people, you know this with like hedgehog dilemma, right? Hedgehog dilemma basically says like, we're all spiky, right? So the closer we get to one another, the more chances there are that we are going to hurt one another. And then how do you deal with that hurt when it comes up? Are you going to be in your trauma patterning, and are you going to say like, oh, you know, are you going to interpret it through the filter of your trauma and say like, oh, my partner's out to get me, or, you know, I have dated more men in my past who have screwed themselves up because they would start to make assumptions about what I was thinking or the reasons beyond my behavior and projecting them onto me, sometimes even to my face, saying, you're not over your ex because you did this thing. And I said, you know, or you didn't spend the night with me, I think you're not over your ex. And I was like, no, you didn't tell me that I was spending the night, and when I arrived there were no sheets on your bare mattress, and I didn't have a contact lens case, and that was very uncomfortable for me. But the fact that the guy couldn't hear that and instead interpreted that as a rejection, like he was, this was like a published author, this was someone I was like, you know, like
What's
on paper
more
I was
important to
into.
you, the ability to see or sleeping with me?
Yeah,
Sheets, right?
Like, you know, it was just, you know, that said to me that, first of all, this man is not looking out for my comfort as a woman. It also said to me that since he didn't want to make plans for me to stay over, that he felt that he had to sort of sneak it in there, just kind of walk to the house after the date, and then I was kind of like, what's happening? I'm confused. I'm autistic, so like, you have me change gears, and I get very like, wait, I have not prepared for this. So that's really what comes up, is how do you interpret those moments when you have snafus like that? Are you going to project onto the other person and create more distance between you? Or are you going to own your own projections? Are you going to be able to see clearly and have a mature discussion and say, hey, what's going on? Because you can be an attractive person, but if you're messing up when the minute of conflict hits, you're going to lose that woman that you're trying to keep.
I love it. That's like DJ Attica. Obviously, DJ in Vegas, you must see a whole bunch of average guys, and then you've got the guys on the tables. What should the average guy be doing to be more attractive?
Tables.
Get tables. Yeah. Buy them throughout.
Well, listen to anything that you say.
Oh, that's very
I appreciate it. Thanks.
No, but I would say like do the things that you say you're gonna do, follow through, and I think the best investment is yourself. So totally, like if somebody's trying to learn dating, like I would take a course from you, or like a couple years ago, like I would not have dated me. I was undateable.
Why were you like? Because you were impossible to reach, or because you were just an average dude?
Was your set not good enough? You got a better set now?
I was just a hot mess. Like I was just, yeah. I think my nickname was Hurricane.
Oh my god.
Oh wait, you're a hurricane. Get the fuck out of here.
So yeah, so you know, I did personal development. I went through Landmark, and I've been working on myself. I stopped drinking. I went vegan. Like, so I would just work on becoming the best you, and then you'll attract somebody that's great.
I love that. And what I love about DJ Attica is like she actually hangs out with like pretty regular normal dudes. That's one of my favorite. Like one of her best friends is like a guy from college, right? Like
yes, Connor. Yeah. In high school.
Yeah, in high school. And I love this guy. He's like a short regular dude. He turned up to a nightclub.
How the fuck she does? She hangs out with Deadmau5. She's sitting on stage. She's getting beers for fucking Deadmau5.
But no, here's the best part, and I love that. She absolutely has people like big DJs invite her up, but she brings up her high school friend. That's the best part. Like we're hanging out, and this regular dude in a flannel shirt, by the way, is and this guy, and everyone else is buying bottles, but that guy, she's like, nah, just pay $100, I'll get you in. Like, and I love that because that guy actually hangs out with you more, is a closer friend than any of these other DJs who are all obviously all over her, and I just think that's so cool because you legitimately hang out with average guys, and it's great because she's always trying to hook them up with women. She's always like giving them advice, which I think is really cool. Yeah, and most of her advice is like, you should hit the gym more. It's like, girl, you know, it's like pretty. She's like, you're actually a great guy. She's like, but you just, or like, do your hair. You didn't do your hair today. You know, it's like really. I love that because I do think the average guy really only needs a few average tips to be able to be that level. But yeah, it is really cool hanging out with her and seeing a bunch of normal dudes hang out with her who are all clearly very close friends, and then these big famous DJs who are trying to get her phone number and like giving her drinks and stuff. And she's like, hey, this is for you, dude. You know, she's like handing it to her friends.
Well, for me, I would say, right, like it's because again, like, I am in our dating program, right, and I help actually all of men, right, and, I talk to them a lot as well, too. Rule of thumb in general, right, is everyone dealt different hand in life, right? Some people were born very, rich, some people were born handsome, some people were born both, some people were born neither, some people were born, with some disabilities, what have you, right? You can't look at the other person and be like, oh, I can never be like this. Of course women like him, and being victim. That's not right, right? So, but it goes on the other hand as well too, right? So if if you're making 6 figures but you're self-made, holy crap, you came from here up to here. But if you making 6 figures because your daddy hired you to your job and you then took over and you're still making like 110 now, well, it's not impressive. The jump is not impressive. So for me, it's ambition basically, right? Is always trying to strive to do better at everything you do, no matter how low or how high you are, right? Even if you have a really good upbringing in life, right, and you really have a really good foundation in life, right? Staying at that level and just coasting by is so unattractive. Using that foundation and propelling even higher, that's attractive, right? Or again, like even if you came poor and came from nothing, right, and making you 50K, right, that's still attractive because you're pushing yourself hard and you're going beyond your limits.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like someone who's curious and just doing their own thing, right? Using their brain, smarts, all of that. I will say, so I feel that, so say you have a graph, right? And on one axis there's like, God, I'm losing my words.
People.
No.
Looks.
Times. Height.
Attractiveness.
Dancing.
Sweat.
Okay, this is not helping. Okay, I got it.
Super chats, let's figure out what it is.
Nervous system health.
Got it?
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's not what I was going for.
That was the next one. Nervous system health. Okay.
And quality of intimacy.
Okay.
Right? Like it goes like this basically, right? Like your nervous system health correlates to your quality of intimacy like 1-to-1, right? And so if you have a balanced nervous system, you're going to be able to be more present, you're going to be able to be in your body, right? And so that's something that I like work with men a lot on. And to your point with trauma too, right? Like trauma thrives on isolation. So if they haven't shared these patterns with like preferably a professional, right? Like even one session can just get them so out of their heads and so grounded into themselves again and allow them to get clarity and move on again. So that's my number one thing. Is
I couldn't agree more with that, by the way.
Okay, so over here at the University of Texas at Austin, Hook'em, I'm a Longhorn, is Dr. David Buss. He is the foremost evolutionary psychologist on earth, and he wrote a book called Why Women Have Sex with Dr. Cindy Meston, who studies mating. And one of the things they figured out was that they surveyed, I think, 17,000 women, and they found there were 237 reasons why women chose to have sex with men. And then if you watch whatever podcast, if you watch Fresh and Fit, if you watch Access Vegas, which is my show, if you watch Pearly Things, you watch any of these other shows that have panels of women, you'll find that they do the same thing. There's this person says ambition, this girl likes tall guys with tattoos, this girl only likes dudes with huge penises, this girl only likes money, this girl, for men, there's 4 reasons why we like women, for women there's 237 reasons why they like us. So because there is no thing, I don't tell men to try to be a way for women. There's a movie about that, it's called Hitch, and in reality that movie is about being a stalker. That movie is like, I'm just going to focus on one woman and I'm going to obsess over this one woman who doesn't like me. That is not the way to do it. I try to help men become attractive to women in general. Being in better shape is more attractive to that middle of the standard deviation, that middle of the bell curve. Having more money is more attractive to the middle of the bell curve. All these things, having a clear face, having a relevant, listen gentlemen, a relevant haircut, some of you, man, you look like it's 1983, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. I have a home, like the whole bowl cut that your mom did back when you were 17, you're still rocking the bowl cut. No, the jeans that you're wearing from Walmart when you were 17, no, not relevant. Being able to dress better, it's better to the middle of the standard deviation. So the thing is, we do all these things, and so in my course, one of the things I do is, I do take them to nightclubs, and one of the reasons why is I want overstimulus, I want them to be blown away, I want them to be incredibly intimidated, because I want to immerse them. And one of the reasons we do that is from the US military. There's 2 things. One of them is the concept of being behind a berm and they fire live bullets over your head. At first your heart rate's in the 140s. Then you do it for a while and your heart rate you have a resting heart rate because you're used to hearing those bullets. Even though you know those things will kill you, you get immersed to that hyper situation. Your autonomic nervous system does not cause your voice to constrict and your palms to sweat and your pupils to dilate, which is what happens to men when they approach women. They're like, hi, what's going on? Do you guys want to get a drink? And I'm like, Jim, you were just talking, you were saying, hey, motherfucker, what's going on? Just 5 minutes ago. Now you're talking to this girl like Elmo, what's going on? That's what happens, right? Because they're not used to it. So the thing we say in the U.S. military is you do not rise to the level of your expectations in a crisis situation. You fall to the level of your training. And that's the reason why I put my men through hell. We play basketball, they beat the shit out of each other. We go through all kinds of stuff because if you can bench press 300 pounds, you can bench press 200 pounds. And so what I like to do is have these men figure out ways in their life. I use charity events. I love raising money for charity and inviting hundreds and hundreds of girls to these different charity events. We use swimsuit pageants. We have theme parties. We have people come over. They'll have theme parties at their house, birthday parties, all kinds of stuff like that. Or we go on stage with Deadmau5 and like 17 girls like we did the other night. We'll do stuff like that. That's what I try to do. And then what happens is that section of the, if you guys remember from your statistics class, not to get too nerdy, but the central limit theorem. In central limit theorem, as you get more, as you get more experiences and approaches, as n approaches infinity, you start to get a normal distribution. And that's what happens to people in real life. As you're a man and you consistently are around beautiful women, what will happen is you're going to get not only, number one, get used to being around beautiful women, but number two, you're going to find the one that matches. When I think about my girlfriend, I've hosted 47 bikini competitions. I teach men how to show up to parties with hundreds of women. I've thrown all these parties, and it took all that for me to find this one girl who is absolutely phenomenal for me. And when I met her, I was like, yes, you're the one. I knew immediately that she was the one. How was I able to do that? Because I had experience seeing red flags, talking about her fucking ex all the time. The fact that like just all kinds of crazy stuff that's going on where it's like very clear how she does not take accountability for her previous decisions. I'm like, that's fine for one of my female friends. That is not fine for the girl who's going to raise my kids. You need to be accountable. You need to understand that I can't have this type of behavior in my relationship. But in order for me to do that, I had to meet thousands of women, and that's what I recommend men do. You set up a lifestyle to where either you can go up and meet strange people, or you're hosting events, or you're helping other people with events, and that's what we teach in my program is how to do that kind of thing. Because then you meet the perfect person to match for you. Because trying to figure out which one of those 237 reasons that women have sex with men that you want to fit, it's the guy who takes too many steroids. It's the guy who shows off his Lamborghini. You're trying too hard at that one fucking thing. You need to learn how to be attractive to women, not attractive to one woman.
Yeah, I agree. And I think another common issue that I think guys have, for me, is they just don't like women. And I truly mean that. As a guy who hangs out with a lot of women all the time, like, given a choice between hanging out with a bunch of dudes or hanging out with a bunch of women, I'm just going to pick a bunch of women every single time. And it always cracks me up because, like, you know, when I ran all the nightclubs in London, I would often have the guys be like, hey man, we're going to go out, you know, before the night tonight, we're going to play some, like, football, you guys call it soccer, we're going to play some football, then we're going to, like, you know, grab some beers, and then we'll meet with the club, you want to come with us? I was like, I'm just going to hang out with the girls. And they're like, what are you going to do, like, get your nails done and, like, you know, do your hair and get massage? I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. And I love it because the guy's like, dude, that sounds kind of gay. And I would be like, I don't know, man, something about hanging out with a bunch of dudes and getting sweaty and getting in the showers naked together sounds pretty gay to me. Like, that's, given a choice, I would so much rather hang out with these women. And, you know, obviously, you know, we went viral 10 years ago, give or take, no, 8 years ago, we came out as being polyamorous, and, you know, we were in a committed relationship with another woman that we had children with for 6 years. And when we came out, the number one things guys would say to me behind the scenes was, I don't know how you do it. I'm like, what do you mean how you do it? And he goes, the hassle of living with two women. He goes, I can barely handle one. And I had it in my head. It was only when I started hearing that, I was like, and that's why you're single. You can barely handle one. I think the number one thing guys have to learn is to understand women, understand how they work, and enjoy it. Like, actually, I love everything about women, every single thing. Even the things that people shouldn't like about them, I love about them. I just think it's all great. And that was a big turning point for me, because when I was 25 years old and I was terrible with women, women were confusing, they were mysterious, they were attractive, attractive and also really frustrating. Like, you know, like, what do you mean now you're upset at me when I didn't do anything wrong? Like, how did that go wrong? Or wait, we had plans for dinner, but now you can't make it because your ex called you, but you don't want to date him and you won't have sex with him, but you did have sex once, but that didn't count because it was on a Thursday? Like, and I would be like, what does this even mean? And she goes, well, it never counts on Thursday. I go out with the girls on Thursday. It's girls' night. We have a rule we can sleep with. And I'm like, I don't understand any of these rules. None of it makes sense to me. And I was like, what about me? She goes, no, I love you. Oh, you love me? Yeah, I love you. That's why I can never date you. What? Like, it just didn't make sense. And as I have learned how women work, and I've learned like woman code, and if you guys don't know this, women have code. There are certain like eye movements in how they communicate with each other. One of my favorite things to do is I've learned it. Yep, I saw that one. I've learned it, and I know, call you out. And I have learned it, and I can not only spot it, but read it, and I know exactly what it means. And it's great when you see two women eye coding having a conversation. You're like, what? I got it. And then you go, he knows, right? But that, to me, was the art. And I would value that above everything else. I agree with Michael. Like, you gotta smell good. You gotta, like, I always tell guys, working out is really simple. You don't have to look like a Greek Adonis, but you gotta be able to do 40 push-ups, 40 sit-ups, 40 squats, and you gotta be able to walk up the stairs without getting out of breath. If you can pull that off and cut back on eating lots of cakes and sweets and candy, like, you're gonna be fine. Like, you're gonna be fine. You should get a good haircut, you should get clothes that fit, and you should really get advice from some women on what you can do about your look. I would trust women telling you how to look a lot more than men. And I love this because guys are like, women don't know what they want. Don't ask her what she wants, ask her what looks good. It's a better question. If you say, what do you want? You have no idea the answer she's giving. She goes, well, what I want is basically Brad Pitt with Johnny Depp and a little bit of Andrew Tate, but not too much. And you're like, how's that a thing? Like, what does that even mean? Whereas if you say to a woman, hey, can you help me dress better? That she can do. She can absolutely do that. And you go, can you give me some advice on where I can go to meet women? And then she's gonna say, yeah, you should go here. The problem is guys don't ask women advice for meeting other women. They ask women advice for meeting them. They're like, tell me how to attract you. Well, now, that's a baited question. She doesn't want to help you do that because you've got to earn that. But she will totally, step by step, tell you exactly what to do for somebody else, and it's a better route to go. If you fix that basics and you can understand how to read women, and you can start to appreciate it. Like, I absolutely love it when a woman is flustered and going on, not that I enjoy that, haha, you're flustered, right? But more like, oh my God, like she's really feeling this moment here, and I get to step in and be like, yo, how can we help? What can we do about this? So yeah, Michael.
For what he's talking about, the thing that was most indicative to me, I used to manage a strip club, and I loved the drama that would happen. I would just actually found it incredibly entertaining, and I loved going to drinks afterwards and, oh, really? She's cheating with this person? I just really fucking enjoyed this shit. I thought it was interesting. You guys should read. It totally would be canceled now. They would never make this show again. It's Californication with David Duchovny playing Professor Hank Moody. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's where all the black t-shirts came from and the finger rings and all that shit. He talks about it. He goes, every woman I see, I fall in love with. I don't want to, like, the next day, it doesn't mean I want to be with them forever, but he just loved being around women, and it made him in the show, he's just outrageously good with women. Like, that's what the whole show was about. Now, they would never make that show now, and he was basically playing himself, because later on he went to get help for sex addiction. Yeah, he was basically playing himself. The show is so revealing. Kylie, if you're watching this, you're not allowed to watch the show. I don't ever want people to watch it because they're going to get too much of an insight. But that is exactly right. And I would ask some guy friends sometimes, like, would you rather sit at home by yourself or be in a hot tub with 12 girls knowing you're not going to have sex with any of them? And the number of guys would be like, I would never want to be in a hot tub with 12 girls. Like, I'm so frustrated. I'd be so angry. And I was like, I don't understand that concept. That doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoy being around women, which is something that makes it kind of different. And also, if you ever talk to a club promoter, or if you ever talk to somebody who like manages a bikini competition or does some sort of cabaret show, or somebody who's like a male nurse who works with a ton of females, any job where you work with a ton of females, all of them will tell you, a guy who manages a strip club, something like that, they'll all tell you they have female friends. Can men and women be friends is never a debate for them. They're very aware, like, because if I don't have female friends and I've got 47 girls at a competition, I'm an idiot. I'm going to get killed, like literally. So it's one of these things where it's just that concept, understanding that concept, and again, I felt like David Duchovny was always the best example of that on television, is this idea of like loving to be around women, as opposed, like, they like fucking women, but they don't like women. And so you see that dichotomy just very, very clearly with a lot of these guys. And so when you try to explain some of this stuff, they're just so beaten and bored by it. And the reason why is because they went in with full intent. They were taught wrong, and they were put in the friend zone. Well, the friend zone is very, very dangerous. It's like the lava in Super Mario Brothers. No guy wants to go there. And after being put in the friend zone over and over again, they started to hate just these interactions with women, and that's where this whole misconception came from. If you can learn to put women in the friend zone instead and say, hey, come out to our place, we're gonna have tequila and play with kittens, and then bring 6 of your female friends, you'll start to learn to love women.
So I love the friend zone thing, because here's what I always tell everyone. The friend zone is where you want to be. It is where you want to be. You want to be her friend. And I'll explain why. Every woman will tell you, I want to date my best friend. They all say it. And then I know there's a guy that's watching this right now who's like, that's not true. I'm this woman's best friend and she won't sleep with me. Right, you're not her best friend. You're the best friend she's met so far, not good enough to be the best friend. You're the best current friend. You didn't reach the status of best friend. Best friend, she will totally sleep with. Best friend. And here's how you know. Because when she starts dating a guy and that relationship kicks off, that's her best friend and your second best friend. So you're not the best friend. It doesn't matter if she calls you the best friend. The actual best friend is very, very simple. It's the one she wants to spend every minute of every day with, and you'll know it because she tries to spend every minute of every day with you. That's how you know. You want to get in the friend zone, and you got to accept that on day one, you will not be the best friend. You will be a friend. And your job as a guy is to level up in that friendship status. The guys that are frustrated and don't want to be in the friend zone, the guys that don't understand that being in the best friend zone doesn't guarantee you become best friend, and the guys that hyperfixate on one woman and go, I'm going to be this one's best friend, you're never going to be her best friend. That's not how it works. What actually happens is you want as many women in your friend zone as possible, and you want to be in their friend zone. And you're waiting for a window. The window of time where she is open to the idea of dating you. It may not be the first moment you meet her. You may not be worthy of her paying attention when that window arrives. So you're going to have to continue to improve yourself, level yourself up, become a better person. There are women, there was a woman that we were best friends with for 7 years. And one day, out of the blue, she messaged me and she's like, yo, we're in the same town together. Do you want to go eat dinner? And I was like, I'd love to. And she goes, shit, I can't meet you for dinner. I've got a date. He wants to do a dinner date. Do you want to do pre-dinner? And I was like, totally, let's do pre-dinner. You know, best friend status gets pre-dinner. It's not a cancellation, it's pre-dinner. Like, we had a date, I'm now going to date this guy, so we're going to do pre-dinner. So we go to pre-dinner together, we hang out, we have pre-dinner, and she's like, all right, I'm going to go on this date. I'm like, no problem, text me how it is. She goes off on the date, and I'm like, great, my friend just went off on a date, I'm going to go home. So I went home, I was in a hotel room, I was traveling, so I go back to the hotel room, I go to bed, and I'm sitting there in my room, playing Pokemon on my Switch. True story, like a true hero. That's right. Because I'm sitting there playing Pokemon, my phone starts going, bing, 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 bing. And I look at the phone, and it's her. And she's like, hey, what are you up to? And obviously, I didn't want to come across like a weird, awkward nerd. So I said to her, right now, I am playing Pokemon in bed on my Switch. What are you up to? Because I'm just going to tell the truth. And she says, the date was a bust. We just fucked for 2 hours and he couldn't get me off. Can you get me off? Take a moment to think about that. How many of you guys would be willing to sleep with a woman knowing she's just had sex with another guy for 2 hours?
Well, how many of you will be willing to stop playing Pokemon to go down another woman? Goodness, that's a big choice.
You guys put a 1 in the chat if you would be down to get a number 2 in there. How about the guys in this room? How many of you guys would do this? Yeah?
So it's good.
Really? And so there's 2 of you?
So no, it's about
3 of you. There's 3 of you.
Yeah, it's about 30%. 1, 2, yeah. Raise your hands high if you would do it.
Four guys. Okay, got it.
Or about just under 30%.
Wow.
And here's the thing. I love this because
Did you fuck her or just get her off?
we'll get there, right? So I said I'm currently battling mute. No, I said to her, I was like, I'm getting tired. Come over. I'll see what I can do. So she literally hops in a cab, comes over, And she goes, mind if I shower? I'm like, you better shower. And so she goes to shower, right? And so she showers, she gets into bed, and she's like, I just need a really good fucking. And I'm like, no problem. It's my friend of 7 years. We've never dated, we've never kissed. She gets in the bed, and so we start having sex. She orgasms like 2 or 3 times. She's like, holy shit, I knew you'd be good. I didn't realize you'd be this good. And I was like, if you just wanted to orgasm, you should have just called me. Like, you didn't need to go on the dinner date with the other dude. Like, you know, she goes, no, seriously. We ended up dating for 9 months. We dated this woman, I think. She ended up moving location. She ended up moving in the same town as us to really pursue the relationship. 7 years of friendship. One night of being willing to finish off what another guy started. Now, you got 2 ways of viewing this, right? Did I get sloppy seconds? Or did I take her and he failed? Right? And you have to work it out. Was she a virgin?
But does it matter? Like, you win the answer anyway, right? So it's like, if you're happy, then you're happy, right?
And this is why I like, because
This is a legitimate debate that a lot of men are going to have listening.
Oh yeah, straight. Because guys, like, I literally met a guy. We had that one guy, if you remember, he worked for us, who said he would never go down on a woman who's had a penis in her vagina. And I said,
Same day.
Same day. Same day. Same day.
Okay.
And so I said to him,
Makes sense.
what about your penis? Like, if your penis has been in her vagina, would you go down on her? And he went, fuck no, I'm not gay. and I love this analogy. And I was like,
Write gay in the chat if you agree. If you agree, write gay in the chat.
I love this discussion. So we get into it. We're like, okay, so if you didn't put your penis in it, but you orgasmed over it, could you do it then? He goes, no, there's cum there, I can't do it. I was like, okay, what if your penis brushed the outside of it? He's like, definitely not, I can't do it. I was like, so even your own penis is, like, you can't post it. And that's the thing, like, guys have really understand, like, unless you're like, I am only ever gonna have sex with a virgin and only once, right? And then that's it, like, it's done. Like, it's just an unrealistic expectation. And I think this is the difference. When I had sex with that woman, I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm gonna date this woman. I was thinking, I would rather have sex tonight than pass out and not have sex. And this is there, and she's a really good friend, and she's stunning. She's 6'1", she's a model, blonde hair. I mean, it's everything you'd want in a beautiful woman. And we'd been friends for 7 years. This wasn't weird at all. It was having sex with a close friend, and it was probably just gonna be a one-night thing. Like, I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna get laid tonight. Yeah.
I've said this before because a lot of guys give me heat, especially in like the manosphere community, when I say you can be friends with women. There's something that's very confusing for them is whether or not a woman is your friend and whether or not a woman is having sex with you have nothing to do with each other. And it's hard for guys to grasp that because they're used to being put in the friend zone. I don't get put in the friend zone. I'm still an attractive masculine man who I put my female friends in the friend zone. And then generally what happened, about 85% of the women I was sleeping with before I met my girlfriend were women that I was just friends with. And if you ever saw us at a big event like Babes in Toyland or whatever, you would never be able to tell that I slept with them because those two things have nothing to do with each other. There are guys out there that don't count, like legitimately don't. Like he was talking about on Thursdays it's girls' night, so we can have sex with whoever we want and it doesn't count. Mm-hmm. Women really do that. So what happened was after a while is like I started to learn this whole concept of like you can just imagine a girl sees you and you're like making an attempt to be with her and she rejects your attempt. From that standpoint, after that point, it is still a rejection. From her standpoint, she knows you have intent to have sex with her and your status, no matter what she says, it does go down a little bit because she rejected you. Now imagine a second idea, and you'll see this happen all the time with like high school groups or different groups of people that hang out, like a cohort of like really attractive guys and girls who like say maybe go to the lake every weekend on a boat, right? Wakeboarding or whatever. You'll see that these girls will notice a guy in the group and other women are attracted to him consistently. It's called mate choice copying from the concept of evolutionary psychology. So he'll consistently see other women attracted to the guy and might even notice he dated one of the girls and she was very happy and she was all over him. So from her standpoint, even though they're just friends, she's consistently receiving attraction she's feeling attraction towards him. He's triggering attraction in her even though he's showing no intent. Pickup artists got this wrong for years. Women do not sleep with you because of your intent. They sleep with you because of their perceived status of you. It is not they woke up and knew you wanted to fuck. They're not surprised. Oh my God, he wanted to have sex with me. I had no idea. They knew that already. So that was one of the things I learned. It took me a while. Again, managing a strip club probably had a huge deal to do with this. But after a while, you come to the realization like I can have a woman and almost like she's the orbiter. I'm not the orbiter. She's the orbiter. I'm sitting there going through my life I'm leveling up, I'm showing my ambition, I'm getting in better shape, I'm making more money, I'm funnier. She's consistently seeing women show attraction triggers towards me. And then of course, one night on her birthday, she's like, you know what I always wanted for my birthday? What? To sleep with you, Michael? Like stuff like that would happen. Again, when I was single, honey, before I had a girlfriend, stuff like this would happen. But that's the kind of thing that would happen on a regular basis. And guys don't understand that concept because their frame of reference is, I saw a hot girl, I shoot my shot, she puts me in the friend zone or rejects me, and so that's what the friend zone is. It is always bad. No, it is terrific if you understand how to use it, if you understand the concept of pre-selection, and if you understand the concept of networking.
Yeah, I love this, and I'd love to hear from some of the women as well, like what you think about this. I was actually the guy that doesn't count. One of my first seminars on dating was, I'm the guy that doesn't count. I am literally the guy that 9 times out of 10, a woman who's friends with, she will, when she breaks up with somebody or is broken up with, she'll contact me and be like, yo, can we just have casual sex until I meet somebody else? And that was me. And I remember distinctly being in a room with like 8 of my women friends, and they started counting how many people they'd slept with. And there was one woman in the room who had only slept with 4 people and listed the names. And everyone in the room was like, bullshit. And she's like, what do you mean? She goes, we know you've slept with Adam. And she goes, well, Adam doesn't count. And every woman in the room is like, yeah, you're right, he doesn't count. I'm like, I'm right here, I don't count. And they're like, no, you don't count, like, everyone slept with you. I'm like, what? And it was such a shocking moment to me to have all these women be like, you don't count. I didn't know until that moment that no one counted me. It's like, that's kind of lame. I was like, am I good in bed? And they're like, you're great, that's why you don't count. I'm like, what? They go, yeah, like, we'll date a guy that's bad in bed because, like, you know, we can keep him. You're just good for sex. Like, and we all know that. Like, you're like a living vibrator. And I was like, this is so lame. Like, but after a while, I started to embrace it, and I recognized that the guys that get laid the most, or the most amount of women, that's how. The guys that are actually having a ton of success, they're that guy. They're the one that gets whatever they want because it's not what they want, it is what the women want. They're going out there and they're grabbing this guy and being like, yeah, this guy's cool. And what was it? And I'll tell you the factor, it was very simple. I didn't kiss and tell. Don't name names. I've dated a bunch of celebrities, a bunch of porn stars, a bunch of actresses, a bunch of OnlyFans girls. Don't name names. No kiss and tell. Don't post about it on social media. Keep it really quiet. If I actually shared who these people were, everyone would be like, no way. I'm like, yep, but it doesn't matter because I'm not going to say anything. And that's what gets him coming back. But as a guy, you do have to be comfortable understanding these women are definitely going to have had sex with somebody else in between. And you have to be so confident in who you are that it kind of doesn't matter that that's what they've done. You just need to know that they're going to come back because you're really good at it. That isn't for everyone. And like I said, I realized that there is a pinnacle of dating where you are this guy that can get whatever you want and you can do it. But that's not for the average guy. The average guy does not want that. The average guy does not want to know that there's some other guy that she's obsessed with or that she's wanted to be with because they're not confident that she's going to make the right choice or to move away or to do it. They just don't know. And so I think the first thing that men have to understand is you're not men. That's not the group you are. That's your gender or your sexuality or whatever, but that's not your group. Within men, there are subcategories. You are the guy that's comfortable being the guy that doesn't count. That's cool. You are the guy that's comfortable being in that long-term monogamous relationship with the one woman from high school and you're going to make it work no matter what. You are the guy that is the party guy that goes around and hangs out with a whole bunch of women and the women will absolutely have sex with you and have a great time with you, but will never date you. Because she doesn't want to tell her parents that you're the kind of guy that she hooks up with, right? So you got to work out which of these guys you are, like at your core. I don't mean who do you want, I mean at your core, who are you? And then you can build that lifestyle to be that, to make that happen. And actually, I'd love to touch back on this point because I know you've got a unique point about this, about men and sexuality and penises going in vaginas, because this is absolutely a spectrum, I think, for guys. Like, there are definitely groups of guys that are like, I want a woman who has never been with another guy ever, so I know I'm the only person that's been there. And there are other guys that are like, I don't really care how many women my partner's with. In fact, I like watching her with other men, right? And then you've got men that are bi-curious and like, well, I want to have 3 dudes in the room when I have sex with a woman. And actually, one of my favorite stories is a good buddy of mine. There used to be a sex museum in London, and they had a voyeur room. and the voyeur room was a bunch of little videos of porn movies, and you could open up shutters to like watch it and look. And my buddy, we're in there, and he goes, dude, this one's really hot. And so I'm looking, and I was like, dude, that's 2 dudes. And my buddy looked at me and goes, what? No way. I was like, it's 2 dudes. And so he looks again and he goes, damn, you're right. I was like, how did you not know? That was 2 dudes. He goes, dude, you gotta have a dick in a porn movie for it to be good. I'm like, come again? And he was like, yeah, it's gotta be a dick. And I was like, you don't like 2 women? I was like, I'm enjoying the one with 2 women. He's like, no, you gotta have at least 1 dick. I was like, you got the one with 2 dicks and 2 dudes. There's no women in your one. And he goes, whatever, dude, it's hot. And I just had this whole moment where my buddy was just completely cool and comfortable owning the fact that he enjoyed watching gay porn publicly in an erotic museum. But I remember that moment being like, wow, we are different, like me and this guy. So yeah, so I'm curious, where do you as a man sit on the fence of can another man's penis have ever entered a woman's vagina, and or what time frame has to elapse? Yeah. And what is how many showers,
You know what's funny? I get the guys who give me the most flack about that. They're like, oh, I don't want a woman who's this, who want a woman who's that. You know the guy who's the most picky? Virgins. They're absolutely the most picky. They always have something that they wouldn't go for. So no, I mean, everyone's a person, everyone's gonna do stuff, and I think if most guys knew the sordid past of the people that they're currently with, they would be shocked. So I'm fortunate enough to have seen it already, so I'm prepared for all that.
But what's the time limit?
What do you mean?
Like, how long can go between another man's penis being inside a woman's or your own before you're willing to enter it? Like, what's that time frame?
I don't know. It depends on the person. You talking about me personally?
You personally. Where's your line?
Me personally, I am comfortable dating women who are very promiscuous, so I probably would have been in the same boat as you, Adam.
So like 30 seconds.
I mean, I've been in some group sex scenarios where that's kind of gone down. So yeah, whatever. It depends on the context. I've been in some, orgy type situations where that may have happened.
Got it. Perfect. Okay, Michael, how about you?
Man, I'm gonna be on the opposite end of the fence, man. Like a couple days, maybe longer than that. Like
for somebody else who's not yours.
Yeah, for somebody else.
2 days between. Yeah.
The thing for me is like, it depends. Like everybody has a position, right? You got a flanker, you got a center fielder, you got a goalie. You have different positions, right?
That's if there's 3 people in the room.
Let me make an amendment. Let me make an amendment to mine. If I don't know the situation or it's some random person, I'm probably going to wait a little longer.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, right. So there's different positions. So there's different positions in your life. Like I got homies that I go out with, and we go to the club, and I party with them. I would never do business with these guys because these guys are they're lunatics.
Yep.
Right? They're gonna take all the investment money and they're gonna use it to snort some cocaine or whatever. Like there's different positions in life. Girls who are like for everybody, like Juicy J says, those girls I would probably be a little bit more tolerant. There's no way I'm going to date a girl though. However, and this is a discussion we have about body count. Because one of the things that there's been several studies that show this is that like as women have more sexual partners, their likelihood of being able to stay in a long-term relationship decreases, and the same thing doesn't happen for men. It does happen for virgin men. When virgin men and virgin women are together, it's an Institute for Family Studies, you guys can look up the study, the likelihood of them staying in a relationship actually is pretty high. And as they have more partners, it drops for men and then flattens out, it drops for women and then just gets vociferously worse as it goes down. So when you have women who've been with like 50 guys, the problem is, it's not just that they can't stay in, it's that there's always these other guy that they had incredible sex with that they think about when you guys get into a fight, and the ability for them to leave is there. Whereas for men, we take responsibility for our own orgasm a lot more than women do, and so because of that, if a woman is physically attractive to us, we can have good sex with her. A woman does not have to practice to be good in bed. Men kind of do. Women do not have to practice dating to be good at dating. They can just be like hot, and we want to date them. So that's one of the issues that happen. So for me, one of the positions would be a possible girlfriend. No, we're not. If she fucks the dude that week or that month, I'm probably not going to go out there. If it's just some girl that I'm partying with after EDC and there's just some wild times, I just don't fucking tell me. I just don't want to know. Because if you do tell me, then I'm probably not going to want to have sex with you.
Dude, first of all, I love you and I love the answer. I don't think I've ever disagreed with you on anything. I've got one disagreement.
Okay.
And that is, women suck in bed unless they've actually trained and got good. I genuinely believe if a woman has not actually practiced and got good in bed, and you know, I have had a lot of partners, and I truly can tell a difference between a woman who has trained and practiced. That doesn't have to be a lot of partners though. It could just be one person that she's like gone with it with. But like for me, like I don't just need sex. I don't just need to orgasm. I need good sex. Like she has gotta be good. And I remember this one time, yeah, it's so funny. I was on a mission to see how many different women I could sleep with per day and still maintain an erection. So because there's this refractory period that increases every time you sleep.
There are interesting studies.
Well, these are important studies. I invent these all the time. Yeah, I've done.
It's actually the amount of prolactin. Like men, like porn stars who can like have multiple erections on the same day have like very low prolactin. There's like been studies on this.
Okay, so
that's a boring answer. We'll come on to yours.
So here's what happened. So I worked out that I could do it if I spaced it out throughout the day, and I could fit 4 in a day, and I could still perform. And so I did this for a period of time, and it lasted about 5 days. And then I was like, this is getting really difficult. Like I just couldn't do it. So I remember I had one person in the morning. I'd got it scheduled. It was like morning, lunchtime, afternoon, evening. I had like a whole rotation. And so I just had sex with the person at lunchtime, and I was getting ready for the afternoon one. And there were new people. Everyone was new each time. So, and it was online, just in case you're wondering how I did it. It was all scheduled. So the afternoon one turns up, and she was so beautiful. So beautiful. She lay back on the bed, and she did the actual starfish. I'm not even kidding. Like spread arms, spread legs, lay there, looked at me and said, "I'm a pillow princess." If you guys don't know what that is, that's a woman who's...
so she's owning it.
She's owning it. I am a pillow princess. And so I'm sitting above her, and my dick can't get hard. And this is the first time in my entire life that this has happened. At that point, I'm now older, it happens often. But back then. And so, Viagra, I'm fine. But the point is, and I don't mind owning that. But the point is, so I'm looking at her, and she literally laughed. And I was like, yo, this has never happened to me. And I always assumed a woman would be like, oh, it's okay. But no, she was like, oh my God, you can't get it up? You loser. And I was like, for a moment, I was like, remembering all the times I got bullied as a child, you know, and I was like, this is so bad. And I was like, no, I just had sex with 2 amazingly beautiful women this morning. This isn't happening. I was like, no, that's not what it is, woman. What it is you're lying there because you think you're hot. And I had sex with 2 other women that were twice as beautiful as you today. My dick ain't reacting because you ain't hot enough. And she looked at me and went, huh? I was like, yeah, you want this thing to perform? Get to it! And so she jumped up, and she's doing this, right? And so, then it actually worked. But I love that because it was the moment I realized I actually had to have good sex. A woman that looked beautiful in bed wasn't gonna cut it for me. There had to be more to it. So yeah, I get it, but like, they gotta be good in bed.
There's a funny thing about that. I'm just a quick thing. You probably already know this, Michael. There's some cultures out there where men have to like, they go into a hut, and then there's like the priestess in there. This is when they're very young, and they cannot leave the hut until they can successfully make her orgasm on call.
Oh my God!
And that's when they become a man. That's a manhood ritual that they have in the tribes.
That's crazy. I didn't know about that.
Some guys still there today.
He never left. He's like, I can't get it, guys. I don't know what it is.
So
sex again.
In my interview with Dan Bilzerian, in my interview with Rollo Tomasi, they both said the same thing about genuine desire. So one of the things I think would work, even if a girl wasn't like technically good in bed, is if I knew Dan would say this all the time, he's like, I wish I could pay hookers, but I can't because I need a woman to genuinely want to have sex with me.
Yeah.
That's the thing that turns me on.
100%.
So even if she's not quote unquote good in bed, if she's really attractive and she genuinely wants it, Rollo's example was, I want her to change her religion and be willing to crawl over broken glass for me. Like that's how much I want a woman to want me. And if she wants me that bad, then I think that would do, instead of her like having a ton of experience. I will have one caveat.
Yeah.
There's some women who don't know how to do threesomes. Like they just don't know what they're doing. They're just confused. You understand? And you have to like guide them. That is the only place where I've seen people just like confused and like a little bit unguided. But other than that, I don't really need a girl to have a ton of experience.
No, you're right. Actually, I remember. Yeah, I was thinking back. I remember there was this one time with these 2 women that literally didn't know how to have a threesome to the point that they kept falling off the bed. Yes. And it was really awkward.
Was it a twin?
So again?
Was it a twin size?
No, it was a kid.
Twins.
Yeah.
That's illegal. No, it's actually illegal in the United States. Yes.
Is it really?
Why?
Twins? You can't have sex with twins. Of course not. They're siblings. It's incest.
Don't say anything.
Yeah, don't say it. Actually, in the UK, it's not.
Oh yeah, that's fine then. But here's why, because obviously we've got off the topic, but I'd love to hear from the women, from your point of view, how does it feel to hear that a guy has a amount of time that they want to pass before you have another partner? And likewise, is that the same if the guy is with another woman?
Okay, but how do you do it in porn men?
Huh?
How do you do it in porn men?
They're not actually twins.
They're not?
No, I know, yeah. And it's not actually their stepmother.
Fly to the UK.
I know, it's like...
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, so it's really...
Okay,
in the UK, like they've done videos, like porn videos, where they were like sisters. They can't touch each other in the US. But I read somewhere, like in the UK, that rule doesn't. Probably other European countries, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Wait till I tell you about the plumbers. They're not... Anyway.
You don't fix their pipes?
That's not really his stepmom either. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so, I'd love to hear, like, from the men thing and the woman thing.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm bisexual and I'm also non-binary. And I really appreciate having the dynamic that I am most attracted to in a man is where my polarities are mirrored. I like a man who is as masculine as I am feminine and as feminine as I am masculine. And so what I dislike about, there's a cover for every pot, and I understand that, not everyone is going to have my same preferences, but for a man who has, say like the one penis rule, right? Like, oh, we can have a threesome, but it has to be only with girls. I don't want another, for me, that's a double standard, right? And this, again, it goes back to our socialization. It goes back to patriarchy. It goes back to homophobia. On one hand, I'm actually very privileged as a bisexual femme because I can be bisexual openly and not receive nearly as much criticism, hate, or attack as a bisexual man. So I recognize that I have privilege in that regard. But when a man has hang-ups around other bodies of men in a way that he doesn't have them around other bodies of women, that's a double standard that doesn't really sit well with me. When a man has hang-ups around his own body that he doesn't have. For example, if we're talking about anal sex, right? Now, a man doesn't necessarily have to be into receiving anal sex in order for me to be attracted to him. That's not something. But if a man is afraid of his own ass, like I have seen this before. I've seen men who are, oh, don't go there, that's gay, right? Now, if you tried it and you're like, oh, it just doesn't do that much for me, that's fine, right? But if a man expects like, oh, I want to go near your ass, but no, you can't come anywhere near mine, that's just like, that does not compute to me. So actually, my ideal man is, again, as feminine as I am masculine as I am feminine, and is also bisexual. And there are women out there who don't want to date bisexual men because there's homophobia, there's things that they're afraid of. It's like, which, by the way, I'm just going to go on the record and say, which is dumb because either you trust your partner in their sexual health protocols or you don't, But for me, I say bisexuality or pansexuality in men is a plus.
I met one of the guys met a few guys that you've dated. We've been friends for many years, and actually, there was that one guy that I didn't know if he was a woman when I first met him, but obviously he is actually a guy. I love that guy. Like, he's awesome, but he was like significantly shorter than you, very feminine, and also just a great dude. Like,
No, that's one where I do have. This is a double standard that I have though. I tend not to date men who are shorter than me.
No, but he was.
Was he?
Yeah.
I don't remember which one you're unless he was wearing the goth boots.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
So I will be okay with men who can wear the goth boots. That's fine. It's just about how I feel next to them.
Right, but
I'm not proud of that fact, by the way, because a man can't control his height,
Right,
but I want what I want, I'm sorry.
But I love that. And I love what you said about...
They can't control their butts, right? So.
I love what you said about the guys that are afraid of their own butts. That's actually, we have a bidet in our house so I can wash it without touching my own butt because I don't want to accidentally be gay.
If you wipe too hard, that makes you gay. Did you not know that?
Yeah. You get 2 wipes per day. The third one, and if you smile while you're doing it, that's it. You are absolutely gay. But yeah, so I'd love to.
You got to be careful. You might be washing your ass, and a finger might slip up there.
It's just the worst. And then 17 Hail Marys to fix it. Anyway,
we didn't ask.
Ali.
Time limit on the extra penis.
Yes, that's right. Okay.
How do you feel about that? Some men have that time limit. Is that acceptable? Is it not acceptable?
I've never met a man that has a time limit. But I also don't date average guys, so I don't know.
Okay. And then what about is there a time limit on his penis being inside another woman?
So for a guy that it would be different for a guy that I would sleep with versus a guy that I would date. A guy, I've had threesomes with guys, so, yeah. We're not with two guys, but like.
With other girls and guys.
I've been with a guy that has been with another woman, either with me or prior to me or whatever. I'm comfortable with that. That is not necessarily a guy that I would date. There would need to be more of a discussion.
Makes sense.
It can't just some guy I'm dating and then be like, oh, by the way, I had sex with this girl today. It's like, what? Like, we didn't discuss this.
You were out.
Yeah. But if it was discussed, I wouldn't mind.
Makes sense. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. All right. So, Fabiola.
Yeah, I'll say, it's been a while, right? When I was, one of my first boyfriends, he was from Muslim descent, and he didn't like that I'd slept with a lot of guys before, and it felt terrible, right? It felt like I was robbed from my pleasure. Obviously, that's not a good feeling. For me, what comforts me is, I feel like there are probably biological reasons for this too, right? Like sperm can live in someone's vulva for like up to 5 days, I think, in optimal conditions. So it's like, well, that gets complicated. So, besides that, I don't care, right? But for practical reasons, yeah.
Yeah, this is actually, I want to get your version as well, and then I'll share some. But yeah, go for it.
I don't have an opinion. If I like a person, I like a person. Like, surely.
Yes.
Not a criteria for me.
Yeah, for me, and I've already answered this, but for me, it's really simple. It's a shower.
Oh yeah, the shower, of course. Yes.
And actually, and I'll define that for absolutely everybody. I won't sleep with a woman unless we're showering. Like there's a shower, a pre-shower right there and then. That's just like the best to get to know their body, get to see them. Like it's just so good and healthy. Like you should just do that anyway. Like I think it's just good generic practice for absolutely everybody. But female and male infidelity is like so fascinating. There's actually a really good book on it, on female infidelity, which we have in our library, which I can't remember the name of it right now, but I think it's literally called Female Infidelity. But it's totally worth reading. It's a psych book. But what I love about it, and for everyone, like I just finished my master's actually, so I'm all about analyzing and studying this stuff because I think it's really important. One thing that I love about that book is it makes a very simple claim that I think will help every man and every woman on the planet understand why men have a different perception of infidelity than women. And it's because when a woman gives birth, she knows for a fact the baby is hers. Mm-hmm. Until the midwife takes it into another room and then hopefully you get yours back, right? But until that point, you know it's yours. The man never, ever knows. And I think, and I'm going to share a funny story because this is my absolute favorite. One of my very, very good friends, Steven, love this guy. Steven's blonde, like really blonde. And Eve is brunette and I'm dark haired. And Steve was looking for a place to stay. And when we first started dating, she needed a roommate. So I recommended they stay together. So they lived together for a few months, became really good roommates. Years later, me and Eve moved in. We ended up moving to Texas, and Steve wanted to come to Texas. So I was like, well, we have a spare room. You can stay in the spare room, and we need a nanny for our kids. And so we had kids with our other partner, and Steve moved in, and then I was moved into the house, into the spare room, to be the nanny, to be the kids' nanny. And I know there are a lot of guys that wouldn't be okay with a young, attractive male nanny, but like I didn't care. Like I knew Steve, we were good friends. A manny? A manny, yep, a manny. He actually hated that phrase. What did he say? He was the children's guardian was his phrase. He didn't like nanny. Yeah, he was the guardian.
My apologies.
That's okay. He needed a manly name. And one day, I was traveling a lot for work. Eve was pregnant. No, Eve wasn't pregnant. I was traveling a lot for work, and I came back, and Eve got pregnant. And as a joke, I said, I was like, well, mate, how do I know the baby's mine? I don't know. And she goes, who am I going to sleep with? Steven? And I was like, you could be. That would be right. And I said, well, we'll know if the children come out blonde. Well,
I know where this is going.
We have 2 children, and both of them came out completely blonde and look exactly like Steven. They don't look like me at all. No, in terms of color of hair, right? And obviously, we know DNA testing is a real thing. Not that was a question. But here's what I love about that story. it was Eve's response when the first son came out, he was blonde. She just looked at me straight away and goes, "Never in a million years, there is not enough money on this planet." And
That's like not enough money and alcohol on this planet.
yeah, not enough money and
really
alcohol on this planet. And Steve was there when this happened, because we'd all been joking about it. It was funny to joke about it. And Steve was like, "There must be enough money." But I love that, because I remember that moment, and it didn't matter. Obviously, it's confirmed they are mine. Like we know.
They are mostly Russian.
And they're definitely Russian. Yeah, and that's the thing. So I'm half Ukrainian. My mum's blonde. My grandma's blonde. Eve's family's blonde, and that's just how genes work, right? It can happen. But there was an absolute moment where despite knowing everything, I was like, "Is it?" Like it happened, and Eve instantly crushed it. Right? It was like, absolutely not. But what I love about that is a man can never. There's no way I can know until the DNA testing does. And even if the DNA testing says it's good, my instincts don't know, right? Your instincts have no clue. And so that feeling still rises up. Now, years and years of dating practice, of understanding the subject, meant that I could easily overcome it and work it out and be cool with it. And it's not a problem, it's hysterical, and Steve's still one of my best friends. He's always coming out of the house when I'm not around. No, I'm joking, he's not having it. But the point is, why I love sharing it, is it does take a very confident guy to be in that situation. On the flip side, a woman doesn't have that fear or that risk. And even in a situation that's completely innocent, and we know our kids are ours, and there are genetic reasons, like I said. We had to get genetic testing. One of us, I want to go into it to make sure, because people online want to know. One of our children, not our children, but my child of another one, has a genetic disorder, so we have to get our kids genetically tested. So it wasn't like, "Oh, are you cheating? I'm going to get a genetic test." We had to do it for medical reasons, right? So there was a reason, so I know my kids are mine. But it doesn't matter that the DNA says yes, that I'm understanding and that I've got it and everything's chill. There's still a part in your brain that's like, "But maybe," right? And that's what guys deal with. And I think it'd be cool if more women could understand that that's the risk. When you're dealing with a jealous guy, to be like, "Well, I'm a woman and you're a guy, and if I'm not jealous, you can't get jealous." It's like, yeah, but there is a very real biological instinctive problem. Yes. That messes up
and
guys.
I get that, but at the same time, I was dating a guy, and he got his ex-girlfriend pregnant while we were dating.
Right, but you also know he got his ex-girlfriend pregnant, and his ex-girlfriend wasn't aware.
I know that we know.
Knew that it was his
but
or her baby.
It's I'm okay with I'm very open. I'm okay with my partner sleeping with multiple women, but with that, there's always a risk.
Sure.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
But the argument he's making goes back to evolutionary psychology.
I understand.
Yeah.
So 300 hominids are about 3 million years old. Before that was Australopithecus. Homo sapiens are about 300,000 years old. And in that 300,000 year period, there were several different periods where Homo sapiens went almost extinct. During those periods, the things that were passed along were the traits that aided in survival and replication. Any other external traits, like a lack of a fear of heights, a lack of fear of snakes, like you think sulfur smells good, things like that would normally poison most humans, those things did not get passed along, and the traits that helped with survival and replication did get passed on. So about 50,000 years ago, if you do not sit there and watch where your mate is all the time and she gets pregnant, you legitimately don't know it's yours. And the prospect of cuckoldry was high, which is why men being jealous of seeing another man having sex with their woman is not insecurity, it is a function of, it's an evolutionary adaptation. And so that's one of the issues that happened, because the men who were not vigilant over their women 50,000 years ago were raising other men's children. That is not, that we know that to be a fact. We also know that through DNA testing of the Y chromosome, 40% of men throughout history have replicated, 80% of women have replicated. So there's always been these surplus men that have been out there that have not had any chance, and those men may come in. That's why you would have to protect. That's why men have these protective qualities, especially when their wife is pregnant or when they're in a relationship with a woman. Also, you'll see this often when you have an older man and a much younger woman. He becomes very protective. It's called like a December-May relationship, something to that effect. For the other thing is, and this is where things get really ugly, and this is why evolutionary psychology is not widely accepted, and the reason why a lot of people have a problem with it is that women being attracted to other women may also be an evolutionary adaptation. When you consider if Genghis Khan comes and kills all the military-age males in your tribe, and the only thing you have is the choice of either either dying or having sex with a new partner. This is also a theoretical adaptation for why women get over breakups much faster than men, is because they understood that there was another guy that came in there, and I have a choice. I either go with the new guy, I either go with Genghis Khan, or I end up dying. And the women that chose to go with the new leader, they ended up passing along their genes, and the ones that did not, and this trait would get passed down generation after generation, one tribe being conquered after another, until we get to the point where we are now. There were 1 billion Homo sapiens on the planet in 1900. There are 8 billion Homo sapiens on the planet now. So we figured out something. Before 1900, everything is a struggle. Before the year 1850, half of humans on the planet died before the age of 5. Life was brutal, and that is where we get our proclivities from. We do not get them from Facebook. We don't get them from culture, and we don't get them from anything that's happening today, anything political, anything we see on TV. We have 15 years of Facebook, and we have 300,000 years of evolution. So like what he's saying before, because we have this evolutionary problem of never knowing if the child is ours, men are always going to be more vigilant on which penises go inside of our partner than the other way around. And whenever we do the studies, the 37 culture study by David Buss, when they ask all 37 cultures, do men care more about women's body count? The answer is yes. Do women care more about men's body count? The answer is no. And furthermore, and by the way, they control for culture. These are Andes Indians, these are Papua New Guinea, this is all over the place. These are not Europeans. In all of them, they saw the same thing, the same exact thing, because men were more interested in a woman's low body count than a women were interested in a man, and women actually thought it was weird when a man was in his mid-20s and was still a virgin. So that's the reason. You asked before if there's a double standard. There is a double standard, and the double standard has to do with biology and evolution.
Oh yeah, but I'm not looking to appeal to every man.
Right.
So,
for sure.
Same.
Yeah, I'm not bisexual, but if I meet a guy, I'm definitely gonna.
Oh, don't worry, I got.
Oh, you got one. You got
I live in Los Angeles. I got it handled.
We call them Ted Williams. They can hit from both sides of the plate.
Well, I actually used to date some male porn stars, and some of them were bisexual and also, were in gay porn. And it was pretty funny, actually. There was a time I was walking through downtown LA with my partner, and he had done some work for a site called, I think, gayforpay.com. And so he's wearing this shirt, and it says gayforpay.com, and it's like almost a crop top. It's this tiny little like aquamarine t-shirt, and we're walking down the street holding hands, and people are looking at us because we're clearly romantically together, and there he is with this shirt, and he finally like says out loud on the street, he gets one more like dirty look from someone, and he says, "What? It says gay for pay, not gay for free." And that's,
Well, do you guys believe there is a thing called gay? There is a thing of gay for pay.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
In the porn industry, that's a thing.
No, I think they were gay though beforehand, and then they got paid for it. I just don't know many heterosexual men who are like, "Oh, you've given me some money, and so now I'm going to start."
Okay, I see.
I feel like they were actually paid for it.
Yeah. For him specifically, he was not turned on by being alone with men, but he enjoyed having men in other group situations. He was mainly attracted to women. He was okay enough with men that he would interact with them in other, group sex situations, and which I was in some of them. They were fun. That was definitely in the plus column, and he was an adult performer for pay. So it wasn't, I feel like
I have a hard time believing that men get money and become gay because of it. I don't think that that's a real thing.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that either. But in terms of our sexuality, like it is a spectrum. Like I am more attracted to men than I am to women.
Sure.
But I'm also attracted to women, right? So in this case, you had an instance of a man who's like, yeah, men are cool. I could kind of take them or leave them. That sounds fun. If I'm being paid, or if there are other women involved, or if for some reason there is more incentive, I'm probably not going to seek that out. Just really, like I'm not going to have a crush on my bro and want to be with him alone. But it's when we're in these binary ways of thinking, like you're either gay or you're not gay, which is such a, there's literally like, that King Missile song, gay or not gay, right? Like that way of thinking is so ingrained in our culture, like, oh, if you do that, that's gay. But the truth is human sexuality is a spectrum, and there's all kinds of experiences that we can enjoy.
So there's a book called Dataclysm by the CTO of eHarmony, and they go over the results of like when people, like for instance, when women said that they dated multiple ethnicities, and when men said they dated multiple ethnicities. When men said they dated multiple ethnicities, they were telling the truth. They would right swipe on anyone they thought was hot, didn't care what color they were. Women tended to not do that. Women tended to pick one or two ethnicities and stay with that, and they, just to be politically correct, wrote all ethnicities on there. However, when women claim to be bisexual on there, they message male accounts and they message female accounts. 97% of men who claim to be bisexual on the platform only message male male accounts, which would indicate that bisexuality is more of a spectrum for women and less and a little bit more binary for men.
Well, I think we need to look at how socialization affects that too, because again, there is so much homophobia in our culture that, especially if you're looking at like self-reported surveys, right? Like
No, it's not self-reported, it's anonymous.
Oh, okay, got it.
It's eHarmony taking their entire database and then using it for that. Yeah.
You should make the Kit Kat analogy. You guys know the Kit Kat analogy? This is one of Eve's favorites. So
I get all my, jokes from comedians, basically, right? Because I feel like there's a lot of wisdom there too with dating. So there's one comedian said as well too, like a really cool joke would be like, why are people so homophobic? Like imagine if we take homophobic out of it and say Kit Kats, and you're like, man, I fucking hate Kit Kats. I want to look at them. I think they shouldn't be in any grocery stores or pharmacies.
They shouldn't be able to marry each other.
Somebody should grab all of these Kit Kats and build a separate store just for Kit Kats. So people who want to go Kit Kats just go to that store and don't like touch any other candy. And you'd be like, whoa, what happened between you and Kit Kats? What's the story?
What's going on there? Well, it's interesting. Like we look through cultures, and me, like if someone were to ask me, like, are you straight? I'm like, yes, 100% straight. But like you look at history, and there's a lot of examples of like in the story of the Iliad, Achilles and Patroclus. Like they were clearly gay lovers as well too, but they had wives and they had many concubines as well too. So I guess it kind of depends on the time period as well, and like what that means to the given person. So I guess it must be more of a spectrum, but I don't know. I guess it depends on the socialization of it as well.
I think women have an organ that's made for pleasure, nothing else, right? So it would make much more sense that we're obviously much more naturally sexually active as well, right? And so I think there's a lot more to like just that example, right?
So my penis is just made for pleasure, right? What else does it do?
To make babies and ejaculate.
Wait, what? It's got other uses?
to slap this a bit, never mind.
Additionally, aren't the plastics making us much more like
Lower
estrogen? Yeah, exactly. So
What, you mean
there's
microplastics?
The phthalates, yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, no, I haven't looked into it, but I've definitely seen a lot of people comment to this. Obviously, they speak about it at universities. They talk about the microplastics and also estrogen in the water, because we recycle water, is increasing the estrogen count in men and decreasing testosterone. What I do know is that many men, I know we've spoken about this, many men should get your testosterone checked. You absolutely should go to a testosterone doctor and go and get it checked. I am definitely not saying get on testosterone. I am saying go and get it checked by an actual expert, not a general practitioner. And the reason I'm saying not go to a general practitioner is very simple. It's nothing to do with testosterone. I had a very bad shoulder injury. I went to my general practitioner and he said, no, that's going to heal itself. And I got a second opinion from an expert in shoulders who said that will never heal itself and eventually you will lose the use of the arm. So go to a specialist for a special problem, not your general practitioner. Don't just walk into an urgent care or see a doctor. As a guy, you should absolutely get checked for prostate cancer, you should get checked for testicular cancer, and get your testosterone checked. These are things that as you get older, you should just do.
Yeah, a urologist or an endocrinologist is interested in you not getting prostate cancer and you not having high blood pressure for a stroke. A TRT doctor is interested in you fucking your wife. I know that sounds like that's a huge difference. An endocrinologist is fine with a 35-year-old man having total tests in the 200s. A TRT doctor understands you want to perform, you want to think better, you want to be stronger, you want to be less fat. He understands that. So please understand, TRT doctor is a performance doctor. Endocrinologist is just trying to keep you from having a stroke.
Sorry. Do they call themselves TRT doctors, or is there a specific? They call themselves TRT doctors.
They specialize in endocrinology, but they work at a TRT clinic.
Well, okay, but it's an endocrinologist.
Some of them are, yeah. Some of them are pharmacists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, I'll give you some of the sample size of one, and this is the reason I got my testosterone checked. I am not that guy, right? I am not the dude guy. Like I said, I like women, I like hanging out with women. So as I got older and everyone's like, you should get your testosterone checked, I was like, no, I'm fine. I asked my GP. My GP's like, your testosterone levels are fine. If they're fine, that's it. And I had a stroke. A stroke that seemed to have no cause. It came out of nowhere. I lost the ability to speak for a few days. I lost the ability to think. I was out of commission in hospital for days. When I came out of hospital, obviously I want to know, why did I have a stroke? The GP's best guess was that I went on a flight and didn't walk around. And so deep vein thrombosis was a thing, and he's like, you need to stand up and walk around on flights. But as I did it, it didn't really seem to make much difference. And so I went, and I was having sex regularly and didn't have a problem with erection, so I didn't think it was a testosterone problem. But a friend of mine said, you should go get your testosterone checked. It was actually my fitness trainer. He said, go get your testosterone checked. So I was like, fine, I'll get it checked. And he said, it was so low that they phoned me on a Sunday afternoon when the clinic was closed, when the results arrived in his inbox from the lab. And he said, you're coming in tomorrow morning, you're getting on testosterone right now, you are in danger of another stroke happening, because this is something guys don't know. When your testosterone dips that low, it can cause strokes. And so, and I'm saying I had one because of it. So you absolutely, as a guy, you should get checked. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying go do it, but I am saying get checked.
Yeah, I think this testosterone has gone down throughout the years, right? The last few decades.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
What are the reasons for that? Do you guys know?
Well, again, like there's speculation, right? Estrogen in the water, microplastics. There are a lot of speculations.
I've heard a lot of speculation, but
there's another one. The one that is concrete, but we can't say it's population-wide, is as we get further and further away from a survival scenario, testosterone levels drop because your body over time has a normal decrease in testosterone. That's why you don't see guys in their 60s with a total test of 900 because they would stroke out. They don't have the plasticity in their veins and their arteries. So as you get older, your arteries harden up, so you don't want that much thick blood. For those if you don't know, when you take exogenous testosterone, your blood gets thicker and you increase the number of red blood cells that your bone marrow produces. So now what happens is over time that starts coming down. If you live a sedentary life behind a desk and you're consistently not receiving a great deal of vitamin D, over time your body just comes to the realization this Homo sapien doesn't need as much testosterone. And if you do that over the course of millions of men, over the course of countries, people working indoors everywhere, China, India, and all these different places, you're going to get overall testosterone levels. If they did testosterone level checks in the 1950s compared to now of like NFL players and then guys who work in recon Marines or Navy SEALs, I'll bet you'll find the same levels of testosterone. Yeah. But overall, life is just easier because I'm an Uber driver. Life is just easier now because I do Amazon FBA. Life is just easier because I'm a copywriter. Whereas before, I haven't been in a fist fight in my entire life, and I meet women on Tinder by swiping. That's the reason why I believe testosterone levels in general are lower.
And that's the thing about survival scenarios, because there are some common survival scenarios you might find yourself in, right? Whether it's you're in a car and it goes underwater and you can't get out because of the window, or maybe you are on a plane and somebody starts to try to start a fight. I'd like to introduce you guys to the Atomic Bear pen. If you go to theatomicbear.com/dating, you can get access to this tactical pen at a massive discount, with a 20% discount for everyone that listens. Not only is it good for smashing glasses, to get maybe ruin a pair of glasses you don't like, or to smash open a glass window in a car. You can use it in a self-defense scenario, or the thing you're most likely to use it for, opening Amazon packages. That's right. As a male, the number one survival situation you're going to see yourself in is struggling to open an Amazon box with a box cutter. And let's be real, if you slip with a box cutter, you might accidentally slit your wrist, and that's the end of your life. An accidental suicide, you're now a statistic. With the Atomic Bear tactical pen, you can pierce the tape and open it without fear. Look, you can see it's actually difficult for me to do any harm here. So go check that out, theatomicbear.com/dating. Lloyd.
What are we talking about? Do you want me to talk about the atomic pen?
One more thing, we passed over this just a little while ago. This is a concept, and you could say this is cultural, but my masculinity is tied into my heterosexuality. It's not to say that a gay man can't be masculine, because he can, but part of masculinity, when you think of like Clint Eastwood or any sort of, even from Achilles or whoever, part of their masculinity is their heterosexuality. For a woman, her femininity is not tied to her heterosexuality. Meaning, if you have a totally heterosexual woman and she's sitting on a birthday party and she gets drunk and her friend comes and kisses her on the mouth, no one thinks about it. She doesn't lose value from it. But for a completely straight man to have another completely straight man come kiss him on the mouth in front of his friends, again, because his heterosexuality is tied to his masculinity, that's the reason why there is a double standard.
So this is so fascinating. I'm going to jump in because my business mentor is a homosexual male in a relationship with Queen Brian. And I'll explain why. Because he is a medieval king and probably the most masculine, heterosexual looking dude ever. He's 6'3", he works out, he rides giant horses, he fights every day. And we had this most amazing conversation about, he's like, real gay men are the dudiest dudes ever. He's like, there is not an ounce of femininity amongst them at all. He's like, it's just a bunch of dudes. And he goes, I'm never going to forget this one time I was out with some of my guy friends who went to a bar, and this guy came up and he started saying, you guys are a bunch of fags. And we looked at him and went, there is nothing feminine about us, bro. Nothing. We literally wrestle men for fun. You really want to do this? We all have sex with each other. We're going to have each other's back. You got like a couple of dudes, looks like those two couldn't bench press shit, whereas I'm doing 300 pounds. He's like, dude, we're going to wreck you. And the best part about it is we don't care about your feelings or your emotions. We ain't going to be sad about you crying. We're just going to beat the crap out of you. And I just love this story from this guy who obviously I respect a lot. And it's fascinating because I agree with you. I think that if a guy who perceives himself as heterosexual or is heterosexual, if another guy came up and he would feel his masculinity was under attack. Whereas actually I find the strongest confidence as a guy is I know I'm not gay. Like I know I'm not gay to the point that like some of my best friends are homosexual and I don't feel weird or intimidated or anything by them. Like when my business mentor comes up to me and gives me a hug, I'm like giving him a huge hug. I'm like, dude, you're awesome. And he's like, you're so hot, dude. I was like, thanks, man. But like it doesn't matter because I know I'm not gay. Like it's totally okay to get that compliment because there's nothing in this world that's going to make me have sex with this guy because I'm not gay. But I find it's the guys that are really worried about their masculinity. Exactly like you said about the Kit Kat. I'm like, why is your masculinity so fragile? Like that's scary to me.
Well, it's interesting because what Michael touched on, and I'm not sure if this is something that you're familiar with, but this is something that you see more in a lot of like the neo-spiritual kind of new age movement, and what is called is polarity practice. And it's 100% steaming garbage. It is actually a distortion of what polarity actually is. And what they're teaching, and I don't think this is what you were referencing necessarily, but what they teach is that in order to have a sacred union relationship, then the man has to be in his masculine and he has to be the lead. It's like very David Data kind of stuff, if you're familiar with David Data.
Spear man.
Yeah, exactly. So man has to be in his masculine polarity and the woman has to be in her feminine polarity and she is surrendered, etc. It's essentially like daddy dom little girl like on steroids, And I had been in BDSM relationships, and the one that I was in was a coercive one. It was one that was not healthy, and so I had sort of already cleared that distortion before I reached spirituality. But if you actually look into polarity as it's taught, and if you look at Taoism, right? Because I'm also a practitioner of Bagwajang, which is a Taoist internal martial art, similar to Tai Chi, but slightly different in form. And if you actually look into like even Star Wars, right? Star Wars is such a great example of polarity teachings, and what is really truly balanced, at least in my opinion. And this has nothing to do with like, if you're only into women, that's cool. Like I'm not here to tell people that they need to be gay or they need to be bi or anything like that, because everyone gets to decide their own sexual orientation, and you can't necessarily choose or change the genders that you are attracted to. But what I will say is that when I see a man who, first of all, it's mathematically imbalanced, right? And so if you picture a number line, right? If you're looking at polarity practice and you're saying, you must be this masculine and you must be this feminine, well, there's no end to that, right? That's just a pattern that continues to repeat itself and it eventually gets over-efforted, right? Where you have these super masculine dudes and you have these, and there's actually imbalance in that. So what polarity actually, like the way that I teach it, because this is a key in a lot of my own teachings, is that you're actually looking to bring yourself into balance. And that doesn't mean that, again, you don't have to be gay, you don't have to be bi, right? But what it means is that you have integrated your anima or your animus, right? You have integrated your feminine side. It's there, you're in touch with it, and you're not threatened by it. It's not this dark, shadowy thing that's like, oh my God, I can't look feminine or else I'm gonna, because again, it's like, what are you so afraid of? If you are that confident in your own masculinity, then that means that femininity, your own inner femininity, should not be a threat to you. And the same with women as well. There are women who are, people say all the time, like, oh, if there's toxic masculinity, well, there has to be toxic femininity too. And there is. And I look and I'm like, early Lana Del Rey. She is like the example of toxic femininity, right? That sugar baby kind of I'm helpless kind of thing. And so for women too, to own their masculine side, to step into their own independence and power power or their leadership, whatever that means for them, right? So I feel that a person, whether man, woman, or a non-binary person, or someone who is even completely off the spectrum, for them, when I look at them and I see a person who is really, truly confident, it's because they've integrated all aspects of themselves, and there's not any part of themselves that they're afraid of.
I love what you said about the BDSM thing as well, and how that role defines. So I'm curious, how many of you have actually dabbled in BDSM ever? I totally have. Is everyone except you two?
I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
Nobody likes me that much, so I just say no.
Into the microphone.
I'm gonna say no.
Okay, got it. Interesting. That's fascinating. Is it something you've ever considered? Or you just don't want to answer the question?
I just feel like it's one of these things where like I eat my hamburgers with mustard and mayonnaise only, and like I don't really like need anything else to change, and I like having sex with really beautiful women, and I just don't need to have a ball gag in my mouth or get whipped. That's just the way. It's like the other part is just good enough for me, if that makes sense.
What about whipping them?
Again, like you know what is also fun? Just having sex with them in a bed or on a balcony or in a unisex bathroom. Like that's fine. That's good enough for me. I think that's probably how I look at it. You know.
That's interesting. All right, I love it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like, I mean, look, I would enter if my girlfriend decided that she really wanted to do that stuff. I'd be absolutely down, but I don't have a strong desire to do it. Like, sex that I have is pretty fun, and if it gets boring or whatever or lame, then maybe I'll break up the ball gag and chains and just let her peg me or something. I don't know. But currently, I'm doing okay.
Okay, so no, he's fascinating, right? So for the women, how many men have you met that have or have not had the experience? Like, or maybe not how many, but like, would you say in general guys are against it, or in general guys are for it?
Like dabbled in BDSM?
Yeah, like would you say that guys in general want it or don't want it? And I'm going somewhere with this because Neil Strauss did a study via email marketing to an entire list of over 1 million dudes, and I know something you guys don't. So, because
I already know it's going to go.
Yeah,
so the ratio.
Yeah, so I'm very curious. What
I
the
can't
women
count, but they often have a strong reaction to either or.
Okay, so some of them are like, yes, I want to, or no, I never will. It's interesting.
I think I also know the study that you're talking about, so I don't want to give it away.
That's okay, but in your experience, where would you say that you find that men are for it, against it, or?
Oh, I'm a faulty test case, because very shortly after I became sexually active, I became a professional dominatrix and lifestyle submissive less than a year after I became sexually active. So I was in that world for a while, and then it so colored my sexuality that it was almost in many ways impossible for me to not be kinky in my relationships. And sometimes that even meant, even if I was with a man who was not overtly into BDSM, it still meant that I was following their lead or following their directives, because I was quite literally programmed in my relationship to be submissive. So I don't know, man. I am the wrong person to ask this question.
No, I get it, and obviously I know, but what I think is fascinating, because the next thing I'd like to know is, because I know you've got past all that and you've done amazing things, how are you finding it now? With like guys you meet, like not even ones you're dating, but like, do you find that guys in general are for it, against it, do want it, don't want it?
I think it's one of those things that it's become so common since 50 Shades of Grey that it's not as polarized anymore. That most men are willing to try some things if the woman is into it, and there's a lot of them that are into it secretly, and then there's some who are just like, no, that doesn't really do anything for me. But I don't know. I don't notice that whole thing is so fraught for me that it's almost impossible for me to see it without the filter of my spirits.
How about you two? So, Eve?
My body count is not sufficient enough to give an average statistics information for you, unfortunately. I had one experience.
Well, but you work with a lot of men inside the dating industry. Like, if you've got any insight into that.
From the men I work with, no, because the men we work with are basic men that needs to just learn how to get laid first, and then increase their level.
So the reason I say this is I know the third best promotion we ever did was into increasing the forbidden fruits of the bedroom. That was our third best dating promotion. So the reason I'm saying is, like, statistically, we know when we launch dating products, we get an idea of people's desires. And the one on turning women on was second highest. The one on meeting your ideal partner was highest. The third one was, having excitement and experiments into the bedroom. Below that is confidence, being alpha, being a high status guy, abundance, going to social, all the things that guys think they want, like how to make her yours, all that stuff, lower. But the third, and that's why I'm curious, how about you? What do you find in general for guys?
I would say most men aren't experienced with BDSM, but I'd say most men are curious about it and want to try it.
So I love that. So the study, Neil Strauss, when he was working out covers for his books, he sent out 2 pictures of 2 different covers. One of them was a woman as a dominatrix, and the other was a woman who was sort of like tied up in bed and basically was like, you can take me. And it was like 87% or something, or 90-something% of men wanted that strong, confident dominatrix woman as their ideal. And this is a study of 1 million people on this mailing list. So this was a very, very interesting study that showed that most men wanted that strong, powerful, confident woman. We'll go a step further and we'll say that in most relationships that last beyond 3 years, men complain they don't get enough sex in the relationship. Almost always. And then when you do a study, if you look at Pornhub, they will produce statistics every year of what kind of porn people look at all over America. And you'll find consistently, it's not vanilla sex people are looking at. They are looking at different types of kinky types of sex. The almost #1 solution that will be given to any couple who are struggling in the bedroom by any therapist will be to experiment in the bedroom. So when you have so many men having a disconnect in the bedroom, so many, the solution is almost always this. What I want to put out there is I think that actually what America suffers from is something that I don't believe England suffers from, which is repressive ideas about sex. And this is something that I know because growing up in England, everybody's like that. Like everybody is into it, everybody does it. Like my parents had handcuffs on the bed, like, as a kid you see it, like, and you're like,
that was not my childhood. I grew up in Soviet Russia.
Russia is not the same as England. I think Russia definitely has similar ideas about sex as America. But in England, like, we definitely have we have a very open nature about sex and sexuality. Like, it's pretty standard, the idea of like, spanking, somebody who's, being well behaved or not behaved in the bedroom. That's like a thing. And I found that in America, it does seem to be much more held in, repressed. And so yes, I'd just like to see your guys' thoughts on that.
I fully agree. I'm from Sweden, right? And experiencing the same thing.
Absolutely.
And, first thing that I see here is like, there's so much shame, suppression. I mean, like, people growing up Catholic, it's not allowed. And I think we're like, the U.S. in particular is stuck in this, women can't express their boundaries, and so men need to give. And so it's been like that for a couple decades, and so it makes sense to switch that power dynamic, right? Because BDSM is, power dynamics, right? And so men finally getting to surrender, finally getting to like receive that like dominance.
Or they can be dominant, right?
Right, or they, but like in your
correct.
In your example.
So in England, and the reason I'm sharing this is in the game, which was like one of the ways that dating became popular, Owen, Tyler Durden, talks about London, Leicester Square, being the mecca of pickup. If you wanted to get good at dating, you went to London. And that's where I learned. I learned on the streets of London in Leicester Square. And the reason it was hard to get good at dating there was very, very simple. Every pickup artist in England went to London to practice, and you were not there alone. You were competing with other guys who thought it was funny to come and knock you out and try and take over. In addition, there were groups of large African dudes, and there were like 5 or 6 of them that would physically intimidate and attack you to try and prove their dominance over you to get women. So I was explaining this last night. You don't just have to be good with women. You have to be good with women and be prepared to deal with a really big dude or a group of guys that were going to be aggressive. And so we developed a very different approach when it comes to dating. Like, I absolutely remember talking to a woman and trying to be all sweet and soft, and then some big dude's like, "Hey bro, she doesn't want none of your shit, fuck off." And you'd be like, "Dude, I swear to God, I'll stick my knife right up your fucking ass." And you go back and keep talking. And And the guy's like, the fuck you say? And he go, I'll repeat it again, you're clearly deaf and dumb. I will take the knife out of my pocket, shove it up your ass. Done? Good. And then you go straight back. And it was a very unique way of dating, because you've got these guys and you're like, half, are they going to attack me now? I don't know what's going to happen. But we developed a very strong sense of who was around us and what we're doing. It meant that we would practice dating in venues where that wouldn't happen. So we'd meet women on the street, but we would try and practice, and so that's how we ended up doing the nightclub scene. But one of the top nightclubs in London to meet the most beautiful women was a nightclub called Torture Garden, which I'm going to get to in a minute, because in London, Torture Garden proved a point by how kinky and deranged it was, because the venue for Torture Garden was a church. And they rented the church from I believe it was a Catholic church. They rented it for 1 day a month and paid them so much money that they were allowed to convert the entire church into a giant kinky BDSM nightclub with like techno music on one floor. The next floor was like regular music. The next floor was just sex. Everyone just had sex. The next floor was like a bunch of toys. And then the basement was more like a chill out area. And all the dating coaches in London, all the pickup artists once a month would go there. They'd all hang out in the bottom basement. All right, that's where I hung out. Maybe they went everywhere else, I don't know. And they practice. And the reason I'm saying is because I noticed a few years ago, the Torture Garden moved to Canada and then started appearing in America. And so you're seeing this movement. I mean, when I grew up, we had a coffee table, and on the coffee table you'd have these like books of photography, right? So we have some. It's like Helmut, right? Helmut Newton. We have these like photography books. In London, we had the same, and we'd have the Torture Garden photography book, and it was there on my coffee table as a kid. That sounds weird, but that's what we had, because it was art. It was this display of the. It wasn't naked people. It was just people in these cool costumes. So my question, something I wanted to talk to you guys about: is it possible that I grew up, I probably had that book on the desk when I was 13, and I think Torture Garden probably came to America when I was in my 30s. So there was a 20-year difference from Torture Garden being an artistic photography book in England that was acceptable anywhere before Torture Garden, the club, even appeared in America. Is it possible that America is 20 years repressed on sexuality against what I would call Western Europe? What do you think?
Yes.
I think in general, yes, America is a very sex-negative society, but we also had 20 years ago, like we had those parties in New York, like we had our
90s,
version of
the 90s, bro. 9 Inch Nails. The 90s was full of that shit.
Yeah, we had plenty of I wasn't going there 20 years ago, but say like 10 years ago, or maybe even 15 years. I don't even remember anymore. But we had Bite, we had Impact, Smack. There's a ton of Torture Garden-like parties in New York. So I think we had the equivalent anyway.
Nice. How large were they, just in terms of attendees?
Oh gosh. Well, we had the Black and Blue Ball. That was the one, and actually that was in the converted church. So it wasn't a church the rest of the year. But remember, it was Limelight, and then it was Avalon, right? And so that one was pretty large.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I could see that New York might be that level. Was that outside of New York? Was it anywhere else, or was it just happening there?
You were getting that in New York, San Francisco, and Tampa, actually. I'm pretty sure Tampa.
I presume it always happened in New Orleans. I just assume that.
Not that I know of, okay. But I would say, but overall, I do agree with you that America is a far more repressed society than most European cities.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, Mike.
So I think where the cross thing here is are they more advanced? There's a lot of guys who would make the argument that in order for a relationship to be healthy, a man must show masculine qualities and lead in a relationship, and then him being whipped by his woman might not lead to those qualities over the long run. So I think that would be, so when you say advanced, I'm sure some guys would be like, I don't know if that's advanced. For me personally, I don't have a problem with if my girlfriend wanted to tie herself up or me tie her up or whatever, I wouldn't have an issue with it. If she's my birthday and she wants me to do it. But the thing is what's awesome? Pepperoni pizza. You know what else is awesome? Pepperoni pizza. I don't really need other shit on my pizza. I kind of like pepperoni pizza. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. It's it's not that I have it's not a problem. I personally don't want to be ball gagged or whipped. I don't think it's cool. But I've just seen, just hear me out on this. I just see Machine Gun Kelly in a pink dress, and I don't have a problem with it. But whenever I hear women say men aren't in touch with their feelings enough. I'm like, what the fuck are you watching? Like, I'm seeing men super in touch with their feelings. I'm seeing men having like no trouble at all being incredibly expressive and feminine all over the place, Harry Styles, and I don't see them being shamed for it at all. So I just think it's one of these things where, you know, I think it might be a good idea for men to maybe not try to be so incredibly vulnerable to women that they just met. Maybe earn that right later on. Maybe it's the mother of your children
Break
or somebody.
out the pink dress later
on.
Once you've already dated Megan, like you don't get Megan Fox by wearing a pink dress, but once you date Megan Fox,
then the pink dress is a requirement. I mean, maybe you've had a couple of kids with her or whatever. But I just feel like I don't think we're repressed at all. I think men are being told expressly to be feminine right now. I think it's an extremely powerful narrative right now.
Do you find Megan Fox attractive? Just curious.
Yeah, I mean, she's a good-looking woman.
If the requirement to date Megan Fox is you had to wear a pink dress, would you cross that line?
I don't know I don't know Megan Fox personally, but someone who looked like her, as hot as her, yeah, I'd wear a pink dress. I don't care.
So I just want to ask that question because I thought it was funny. But yeah, because it's fascinating how many guys like, I would totally want to date Megan Fox. And then I always think about this, like everyone wants to be a lion and says it's time to do lion shit. And then it's like, what if the requirement to date Megan Fox was the minute you start dating her, she's like, yeah, I kind of only date dudes in pink dresses. You're like where would you sit?
Wait, you have to always wear it? Like, I thought it was just one time.
I think that may have been the actual requirement.
Yeah, it's like
I think it may have been the actual requirement. No, I mean, it's just, my girlfriend does look like Megan Fox. Like, she gets mistaken. Like, she had people bring it up to her all the time. And she's never asked me to wear a pink dress, which is put a ball gag in. So I just think that's good. Like, I just feel like it's a sign of confidence in my role in the relationship when she doesn't want to do things like that to me. That's just the way I see it.
And like you said, you selected specifically somebody you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, so she's a traditional woman from Arkansas, so yeah.
So if she'd said on the third date, hey, you know, Mike, once a year, you're like, you know what?
I'd be like, that's an interesting suggestion that you have. No, we're not going to do that.
And you're now in the friend zone forever.
No, it's like if you want me to whip you and your friend at the same time, that's fine. We can do that. But I'm not going to, I don't really need you to tie me up.
I'm still on the image when you said tie herself up. I can just imagine you come home and she's like, honey, I'm stuck.
Yeah, I can see that. That would be fine. You know, if that's what she wants to do.
There's a theory about that. You mentioned the two covers. So one cover has the guy tied up and one cover has...
No, one is a woman tied up. The other is a woman with a whip. So you've got this traditional dominatrix in leather with a whip. The other one is the woman tied up being submissive. Yeah. And every guy wanted the dominating woman versus the submissive woman.
Yeah, so like going off what Michael said, which is that like men are becoming more feminized. I think that's true. You know, I've seen it a lot. There's actually some studies that kind of show that as well too. But also too, the way men are growing up now is a little bit interesting because mostly they're being raised by women and they only get like an authoritative figure in their life that is a woman. So you look in schools, like 90% of teachers are all women. Usually the father is not kind of involved as much as the mother is, so they go home after being like basically told what to do by women all day, and then they go home and there's a woman there who gets them in trouble. So I think instinctively as maybe a child, when men grow up, they're taught to seek approval from women and permission, and I think that might appeal to them at a certain level, although I have no evidence other than the fact that I see this in society happen. So maybe that might be why that cover was a little bit more popular with men.
Here's what I'd like to ask you, because we're getting on time, and so I want to move it towards the end, but I think this would be really interesting for each of you. You know, if you've taken the time and you're sitting here and you're listening to this, obviously you've already gone to the atomicbear.com/dating and checked out their pens, which I highly recommend if you truly want to be masculine. But beyond that, I think it'd be really fascinating if everyone here would take a moment and just share. There's a guy who's watching this and he's like, you know what, I really do want to improve. I want to get better at women, and I'm not sure what do I do. Should I wear a pink dress? Should I be overly masculine? Should I only have pepperoni on my pizza? You know, should I be going to the torture garden? You know, what should I do? Because I think that's the thing about dating is guys get confused. There is mixed messages out there. Like I know somebody's going to wear a pink dress and go out there and hope to find Megan Fox, right? If in a short sentence from each of you in a paragraph, if you're going to give advice to some guy, a very practical step-by-step on what to do, what would you say? Why don't we start with you, Michael?
Yeah, again, one more time, there's 237 reasons why women have sex. That's the book Why Women Have Sex by David Buss and Sidney Messon. I just use that to illustrate that there's just so many different reasons that for men to sit there and focus on how do I make women attracted to me or a specific woman attracted to me is not the answer. The answer is how do you level up as a man in general? You'll just notice, like I've had two different periods of my life. One when I was in my early 20s, living here in Austin, working at nightclubs, chasing after women, and then in this period of my 40s where I make a really good living. I have several employees, and people know I have a successful company. And I will tell you, it's a lot easier for me to meet women now. Like when you handle this other part of your life where you have a lower body fat percentage, you understand how to speak without stuttering, you can hold eye contact, you have some level of charisma, you have your game on point, and all these other facets of your life that people would consider to be masculine, you don't necessarily have to focus. Like for instance, if I get good on the bench press, am I getting stronger to play football, or am I getting stronger to open a door, or am I getting stronger to defend myself? It doesn't fucking matter. I'm just getting stronger. So my whole thing is when you're developing these traits, let's just develop the traits, and then let's create a lifestyle to where it's a win-win situation for charity events, for galas, for all these different events. You become a very social person. You become very comfortable meeting tons and tons and tons of women, growing that sector of the pie, and you're going to meet a woman that is very much into what you're selling. She's going to buy what you're selling. She's going to be very much into you, but that's only going to happen. Like for me, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm screwed up from living in Las Vegas for 10 years. My standards for beauty are outrageously high, but the only way for me to meet a girl that met those standards was for me to throw so many events that I met a girl who was that attractive, who also had the same morals and values that I did. But that took a lot of work. For a lot of guys, you guys aren't going to be exactly like me, but it's going to be the same situation. My girlfriend is in her early 20s. If I met her when I was in my early 20s and she was in her early 20s, she wouldn't have pissed on me if I was on fire. She would not give a fuck about me. But I'm 45 now. I figured a lot of things out, and now she finds me attractive because of the things that I figured out that I had to work on, right? That's the thing we need to understand as men. It had nothing, like, it wasn't a game technique. I didn't sit there and ask her if she'd ever made out with her best friend, or if she use the same fucking shampoo, whatever the thing. Do you floss or before or after you? I didn't ask her any of that shit. I went up to her and I was just simply a masculine 45-year-old man who has my shit together. And that was enough. So that's what I would recommend for you guys.
Love that. Fabiola?
Yeah, for me it comes back to nervous system control again. So I've been working with a lot of men recently, and yeah, it's like unfucking any sexual trauma, right? So you're not like in your head. Being really present in your body so that you don't have performance anxiety when you're seeing someone, right? Because I think there's often a part of men somewhere that like knows that, oh shit, like I'm not gonna be good enough, I'm not gonna like do this, I'm like gonna come too soon or whatever. So what I do is hot and cool training in one session with them to make sure that they can, through embodiment practices at home, right? You're doing exposure therapy, but I'm like, no, go, yeah, right? I'm like, go home, do these practices for like 1 or 2 weeks and see how you can center yourself and be really calm the next time you see a woman. And that way, like, you are like obviously feeling a lot more safe to this woman. So yeah, those and self-love, you know, yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Eve?
I will say, I am starting a men's group program on July 1st. So follow me on Instagram for details on that.
Very cool.
Thank you.
No problem. For me, I would say, if you picture that you got your ideal woman, right? And yeah, you attend cool events and you eat cool food and you have awesome whatever kind of sex you want, right? What else are you doing with her, right? Are you staying indoors or are you going on bikini competitions? Or if you're staying indoors, what are you doing? Are you reading books or are you watching movies? And if so, you're watching scary movies or comedy movies or documentaries, right? Whatever that answer is, do more of that, develop hobbies in that, find more people that resonate with that, because that's your true self, basically, right? So kind of like that's your true north, aim for that, and work your lifestyle and the qualities of people you want to meet around what you like internally, right? Because if you just gonna throw these big parties and pretend to be someone like you're not, you will still not resonate with that later on, right? And you'll always question, does your woman like you because you're just awesome and everyone likes you, or does she like you for who you are?
I love that. Perfect.
I would say if you're wanting to or thinking about trying a flavor of pizza that's not pepperoni, you should do it. Because you only live once, and why not try everything? So.
Love the shit out of pepperoni.
Hey, you can love pepperoni, but Maybe you're questioning if you want to try some barbecue pizza. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you'll like it more than pepperoni and you'll never go back.
I would say first and foremost, listen to women, and specifically listen to the woman who is in front of you, and stop treating women like we are a monolith. Stop saying, oh, what do women want, right? Well, why don't you ask the woman, maybe don't ask her directly, what do you want, right? Because as Adam was saying, that's, you know, you're not looking for her to give you instructions on how to game her, but you do need to trust the lived experience of the woman in front of you and listen to what she's saying and empathize with her experience. And the more that you have integrated yourself and removed your own filters from your trauma patterning and from the rejections or abandonments that you've experienced in your past, the more you can see clearly the person who is in front of you. And also that nervous system regulation, as Fabiola was talking about, because actually the more regulated you are in your own body, the more you can pick up on interoceptive cues, which means that you can tune into how the other person is feeling. So the more that you can feel your own body, the more capable you are of actual physical, energetic empathy. And that really helps in cultivating presence. To really be present with someone, I think, is the best gift in love and romance that you can give them.
I love that. We're going to get Lloyd and then myself. Before that, though, if you're in the audience and you're live here and you have questions you want to ask, just start prepping those questions now. We're going to finish on a Q&A, so we're going to let you guys ask questions to anybody up here, and we'll make that happen. So, Lloyd.
Cool. So, with dating as a guy, and to some respects, if you're a woman as well too, but for a guy, you got to be able to meet people, you got to be able to attract them, you got to be able to connect with them, and then if you want to keep them in your life, you got to be able to have conversations and move forward that way. So if you're going to do that, you have to have a bedrock of confidence underneath as you go through those few steps, okay? My recommendation to build confidence is to give yourself small goals every single day and do them. Too often, guys, when they're in their dating lives, they have these, I need to get the girl. Well, you got to do a few things before then and build up confidence, and then you will be able to get that person, okay? So you got to meet, you got to attract them, you got to connect with them, and then you got to keep them if you want to keep them, or if you decide they're not the right person for you, then you find somebody else. So those are the 4 steps. That's exactly what I cover in my program, step by step by step. I have a degree in physics, so I know how to break things down to the most simple components. So if you're a nerd, you'd love my stuff.
Dude,
Can I say one thing to what you said?
Yeah, of course.
This is really big mantra in like the red pill community to not listen to women. You should. But here's the question that you should ask, and this is something that I'm into. I ask my female friends who they slept with, and when I get that answer, it's sometimes different from the answer I get normally. Meaning, like, I will hear that they love Alex the accountant and they hate Brock the bartender, but they slept with Brock the bartender. And I think that's where, whenever I ask, you met this person, how long was it till you had sex with them? When you're really friends with a female, and they'll tell you the truth about this, I'm telling you, it is one of the most enlightening experiences I've ever had. When I worked as a manager at a strip club, and I would sit there and these girls would be just bluntly honest with me about stuff, that's when I came to the realization about the world, what the world is really like. And so that's what I would recommend for you guys. This idea that they don't know. So listen, some men are simps, and sometimes women fall in love with guys that they don't understand why. But if you ask people about what they did, what actions they took, you're going to find out what the truth is.
So you guys are going to love this. I've been a dating coach for 18 years. And as a dating coach for 18 years, a lot of what I have said is on the internet. They've made 3 documentaries about me. I've been in the news. I've been proven to be good at what I do. Steve Harvey Show, The Today Show. And the point is, ChatGPT wrote it all down. So I've got the best favor for you in the absolute world. I created a sequence of prompts that train ChatGPT to give you dating advice just like I do. In fact, ChatGPT knows my favorite lines, it knows how I respond to certain text messages, and rather than pay me any money whatsoever, you can just go to askthedatingcoach.com.
It's aceformula.com.
You can just go to aceformula.com/gift, and you can select your gift to have an AI trained by Adam Lyons. You can post, after you train the AI by asking a sequence of prompts, you can ask it any dating question you want, and it will answer just like me. You can do that instead of giving me any money whatsoever, and have a completely free version of digital me on your computer that will answer all sorts of cool questions for you in dating, and it doesn't cost a penny. You are welcome. There's your digital AI dating coach, and I do that because I make all my money doing mergers and acquisitions. The only other thing you can do to be more attractive as a man is to get yourself a tactical pen. I was would go to the atomicbear.com/dating. So that way I always feel confident in any scenario knowing I can stab the jugular of somebody, or more importantly, open an Amazon package, or, and here's the kicker, show me another way of opening an Amazon package that will also let you sign for it. That's right, the Tactical Pen does all those things. Check it out. That's our sponsor. So with that being said, we're going to shoot a microphone into the audience by way of Travis. I'm going to throw it and you're going to catch it. Excellent catch. Wow. I knew that was going to happen. We practiced all day. And then what we're going to do is, if you have a question, raise your hand. And we're going to answer those questions. So let's go for it. Let's get some questions from the audience. And I know Danielle may have some from people on the internet.
Yes, online they were asked, what would be the best way to clear your filters of past traumas or other emotional barriers for intention of connecting, and what are the most common?
Yeah, so what I do in my work with my clients in the repatterning project is we take an assessment called the PTSI. It's called the Post-Traumatic Stress Index, and that shows you 8 profiles, and you can find that, I think, at traumatest.com. I'm pretty sure that's the URL. But that shows you the 8 most common patterns that are traumagenic, that basically if things happen to you that cause you to act from negativity, that cause you to act from scarcity, you're going to see those profiles right there. Because basically, as I think it was Carl Jung who said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So what we need to do is to look at our past timeline, the events that we have had in our lives, and just start to think about the ways that they've affected us. And the most effective way of doing this, or at least the most obvious way, is just look at an area in your life where you're not getting the result that you want, where you keep trying the same thing and yet you're getting frustrated. Chances are you have a traumagenic pattern there that you learned in your early childhood or throughout your formative relationships that taught you something in a very specific scenario that is actually no longer serving you. So you can actually do these one by one just by looking at the areas in your life saying, where am I not getting the result that I want? What did I learn that is causing the behavior that I'm enacting in these scenarios? And can I go back and find the origin place of where I learned that, realize that that was a very limited scenario in which I learned it, and install a new pattern that is actually going to serve me in those scenarios from now on.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I will say, trauma lives in the body, right? And ideally, if you have trauma, right, like I highly recommend working with a professional, like at least one session or like a group program where you do get that professional attention to it. It is so worth it, right? Like one event, over and over again, I just see one event in someone's life, like affecting every area of their life, and it's so heartbreaking, right? But I will say, yeah, there are 2 favorite things that I like to teach people if they don't cannot afford a session or anything like that, and that's, one of them is shaking. So shaking for 5 minutes every day vigorously allows your nervous system to go past, like basically complete the stress cycle that you went through, and this way you can like automagically sort of release trauma without like needing, you never need to go back and revisit the trauma, like you shouldn't in fact, to be able to process anything. That's bullshit, right? That's one thing. So shaking 5 minutes every day. The other thing is practicing being in the felt sense. And so this takes you away from like your cognitive, what happens when we have like a story is like, our brain is like, oh shit, like I'm feeling something, and it's trying to figure out why. And then the story becomes like even bigger and bigger, and it's like, whoa, what is this thing that I'm feeling? And then it's like, oh, you've lost control, right? So going into the felt sense is about like, okay, what am I actually tactily feeling right now? And speaking the language of the body, so not like fear or love or anything complex that the mind, like any language constructs, but like heat, cold, tension, even numbness, right? And just saying, I feel a tension in my chest, and saying it out aloud. So sensation followed by location. And that will allow you to understand what's going on, like align all of your, like, the triune brain is not a super accurate model, but it works because we've seen it over and over again. So those are my 2 tips.
Nice. Next question.
All right, the last question is, what are some ways to be more charismatic and high energy that is seen as attractive and confident?
Yeah, man. I'll tell you right now. The way that I found for me is, it's really interesting. So I'm going to give you the very practical answer, and then I'm going to give you like the more esoteric answer. The practical answer is, I do not consume any caffeine until right before I have to perform. So I go and I'm going to do a show, or I'm going to go out and be social with people. I don't take shit until right before, and then I make myself talk to as many people as possible. In these situations, two other things that I do is present moment awareness and gratitude. I'm not a very woo-woo person, but I read The Power of Now, and I read the science about this idea of present moment awareness and how it goes back to the trauma release thing. 2, present moment awareness, gratitude, and then going as close as you can to a survival scenario. I don't mean actually getting into a fight and almost dying, but I mean something like jumping out of a plane, that's why I love jiu-jitsu, that's why boxing is so great, and that's why actually going up and talking to a pretty girl that you never talked to before, it feels like a survival scenario for men. It's because our evolution designed us that way. So the answer is, what I found as far as charisma is concerned is for me, it is present moment awareness and gratitude, and then getting into a talkative state so that you get momentum. Just like when you're shooting a basketball, just like when you're hitting golf balls, just like when you're throwing a football, you warm up. That is the greatest way that I found in order to do that and to be more charismatic. And the other thing it's a new invention that's happened in the last 3 years is I highly, highly, highly recommend guys watch themselves on camera. I know for a lot of people it's going to make you insecure initially, but one of the greatest things that I found is because of Zoom, I make my clients watch themselves on camera. They think they're so charismatic and happy, but they're so introverted and their faces are just like the whole time. And they're like, bro, do you look happy? Or I'll ask them a question, it'll take them 6 seconds to respond. I'm like, bro, I asked you a question. Can you hold eye contact? Can you get some better lighting on your face? I can't hear what the fuck you're saying. And these things that are going on inside their head, they're not aware that they're coming off so uncalibrated. That's why I highly, highly, highly recommend guys get on some group call. That's what we do. We do free group calls for us, and watch yourself on camera. Initially, you're going to be insecure, but after a while, you're going to kind of see that weird tick that you have. I have a buddy of mine, whenever he tells a joke, he wiggles his neck like this and it looks super weird. It's like stuff like that you don't recognize you're doing, and you don't recognize you mumble, you don't recognize we can't hear you, you don't recognize you say or like every other word, but you don't know that until you watch yourself on camera. So that's another thing I would recommend.
Awareness is good, but that might also be very cute.
I love that. Anyone in the room?
I agree.
Anyone in the room got a question from the live audience? I know we've got more on the internet. Just to give you guys a chance. This is it. Nope. Okay, no hands raised. Let's do.
That's it.
That is absolutely it. Excellent. In that case, we have successfully managed to answer everybody's questions. I love that. Let's just go through everybody again. If people want to find out more about you, where do they go? Lloyd, how do they find out about you?
If you want to find out more about me, the easiest place would be either my YouTube channel, The Single Guy. You can just search for that. It'll pop up right away. Or a.single.guy. That is my Instagram. And then my website is being built at thesingleguy.com. So pretty simple. That's where I'm at.
Love that.
My website is therepatterningproject.com, and you'll find my social media on there if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page on the homepage. And also you can find my band, Arden and the Wolves, pretty much on every platform where you find music.
I am Alley Cat online on all platforms. It's Alley like an alleyway, cat with a K. You can find my music on Spotify, and I'm working on an album, and you can usually find me partying at Zook on the weekends if you're in Las Vegas.
Don't find me.
It's been a pleasure. Fabiola Einhorn. So fabulous unicorn. Einhorn actually means unicorn in German. So Fabiola Einhorn, N as in Nancy both times. Follow me on Instagram. Yeah, literally, I would love to see you in my men's program. Again, it starts July 1st. It's gonna be really fucking awesome. So yeah.
Listen, there is no excuse if you are watching this. You need to join our free school server. On the school server, step number 1 in our program, Men of Action, we have the first 4 steps that we give out on the program. We have a free course that's there. Step number 1 is fix your fucking Instagram. We have 30 perfectly curated Instagrams. We have a 30 book list and an entire calendar of every single event that we do, including the biggest bikini competition in the world, which starts June 30th at Wet Republic, which I'm hosting, including Babes in Toyland, which is July 27th. 27th, which I'm hosting, including all these other things, Swimsuit USA's World Championship and Paradise Challenge. All of that is on our free school server. If you want to find that, all you got to do is find me on Instagram and send me a message. Just send me a message on Instagram. I'll send you to our free school server. You can also check me out on the Michael Sartain podcast if you have not been sufficiently offended enough already. You guys can come check it out. There's a bunch of crazy interviews there. I happen to be going to Romania here pretty soon to get another one with a pretty controversial guy. So you guys want to check us out on the Michael Sartain podcast and Access Vegas. We do every other week. It's me, Rollo Tomasi, and 10 girls, and we do a panel show where we ask them all kinds of crazy questions.
I love that. And of course, if you would like to have me living in your pocket, giving you dating advice completely for free, go to aceformula.com/gift and select the AI Adam Lyons so you can ask any dating question you like and you never have to pay me any money. How cool is that? But if you truly want to be a man and you want to know what it actually takes to be attractive to women, you need to be prepared for everything at all times. And that's why I always carry my Atomic Bear tactical pen. You can go to theatomicbear.com/dating where you can get this beauty for 20% off. Not only can you use this to sign checks that you may or may not still have to pay for out of your bank account, but you can also defend yourself and your right to sign
Can we
them.
use it for BDSM also?
Theoretically.
Yes.
Technically, yeah.
Yes.
You said that so fast.
And that's what I'm saying. That's a little frightening.
So fast. She was like, yes.
Yes.
Like as if you've done it or are going to.
I have not done it, but there are so many uses.
For a titanium pin in BDSM, there's
Yes.
so many uses.
So many uses.
Is it, I'm going to guess, because I know this, it's because you're going to write your name on someone, right? Because this pen is actually really good. It's a Parker Flow pen, which I just love, and it's got this natural grip. Is that what you were thinking?
Not exactly.
Okay. I hope it's not. Anyway,
Multi-use.
I hope you're not going to shove it. Anyway, that's the theme for today. I thank you all so much for tuning into the very first Ask the Dating Coach podcast. If you liked it, please do us a favor and share it on whatever platform is your favorite. Show it to your mom. She'll tell you what she thinks of it, and it makes you a better person. Thanks ever so much, guys. Appreciate it. Michael, thank you for being on the show. Fabiola, Eve, as always. DJ, Alley Cat, Arden, and Lloyd, who is not the single guy. You are, but you won't be if you follow him. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. That's us out.